Chapter 1466. Dao. In the courtyard, Xiaochen muttered, and the great Dao halo behind him disappeared. The ring of light of the great Dao behind him suddenly shrank and condensed into a point before rising continuously. When it reached 10 meters, it stopped. Pu Si. An even stronger aura of the saber Dao swept through the entire city, including all the bladesmen. They felt their qi and blood surge. Unable to endure it, they vomited a mouthful of blood. The other cultivators all felt a strange pressure as well. They all circulated their energies and did their best to resist. It was just a casual action. However, when the great Dao appeared, the vast pressure firmly suppressed the entire Starry Universe city. Even Emperor Wu could not avoid it. Xiaochen finally understood what kind of existence the great Dao energy that the item spirit Qin Yun mentioned was. One had to obtain the Dao before they could comprehend it. The cultivation of great Dao energy had just begun. With a thought, the light formed by the great Dao energy returned to Xiaochen's body. The pressure on the entire Starry Universe city immediately lessened significantly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as Xiaochen was preparing to enter the Saber Sovereign Medallion and ask Qin Yun for advice on how to cultivate great Dao energy, 3 figures landed on the courtyard wall. The 3 figures landed on the wall of the courtyard. They looked around and fixed their gazes on Xiaochen. They revealed suspicious expressions in their eyes. Of the 3 old men, the one in the middle had the highest cultivation, an 8th heaven Emperor Wu. The 2 on the left had slightly lower cultivations, but they were also 6th heaven Emperor Wu. However, the auras of these 2 were somewhat ferocious. This was especially so for the one on the left. He was tall and stout, showing a ferocious expression. This old man is Xiaohang, Starry Universe City Lord. Might I ask if the earlier fluctuation was caused by you? Xiaohang was somewhat suspicious. The earlier fluctuation was startlingly large. However, this person before him was only a 6th heaven martial emperor, which did not seem to be the case. Big brother, who cares about him? This fellow is very strange. Let's kill him first. Greed flashed in the eyes of the tall old man on the left. Seeing that Xiaochen's cultivation was not high, he harbored evil intentions. He wanted to kill Xiaochen and snatch the treasures on him. Right after the tall old man spoke, he leaped down and threw a palm strike. He stretched out his hand and struck out with his palm. Flames revolved around his palm, and a strong wind howled behind him. He cultivated 2 wills, the will of wind and fire. The combination of wind and fire was extremely violent. The main building, trees, and other buildings in the courtyard were all burned to ashes under the pressure of the wind and fire. Looking at the silent Xiaochen in the courtyard, Xiaohang suddenly felt that something was wrong. He shouted, "Third brother, stop." Too late. With a thought, the energy of the saber Dao spread throughout Xiaochen's body. Then he sent a palm strike at the tall old man. The strong aura of wind and fire ceased before the might of the saber Dao. The old man felt an unbearable pressure on his entire body. Before Xiaochen could react, the 2 palms already clashed. The saber Dao energy in his body that contained primordial energy surged out. The force was too strong. Xiaochen did not control it well. The power of the saber Dao flowed out along with this palm strike. Countless holes appeared on the tall old man's body. Each hole had a sharp saber light, looking as piercing as the sun. In the next moment, the old man's body shattered into pieces, and his heart of an emperor shattered. You! The old city lord and the other person were frightened silly. Xiaochen killed their 3rd brother with 1 palm strike. What kind of strength was this? Even the 9th heaven Emperor Wu was not that strong. Xiaochen entered deep thought. His control of great Dao energy is still too weak. Such a 6th heaven Emperor Wu would only need 1/10 of his great Dao energy to deal with him easily. However, Xiaochen unleashed all his great Dao energy with 1 palm strike. I have to quickly ask Qin Yun for advice on how to control and cultivate great Dao energy. After glancing at the old city lord and the other person, Xiaochen left without saying a word. The 2 old men felt like they were relieved of a heavy burden. A chill ran down their backs, and they broke out in a cold sweat. What terrifying strength! Big brother, his cultivation is clearly not high. How could he kill third brother with a single palm strike? Xiao Hang replied with lingering fear, there is only one explanation. His comprehension of the Saber Tao is already close to a legendary realm. Legend? The second city lord was stunned when he heard the words. Obviously he could not understand it. Did he see the legend with his own eyes? After leaving Starry Universe City, Xiao Chen arrived at the edge of the island. After he took out the Cycle War Chariot, he directly entered the Saber Sovereign Medallion. Congratulations, Master. You have successfully grasped a complete Tao. Qing Yun knew everything that happened outside like the back of her hand. When she saw Xiao Chen enter, she smiled softly. At the same time, she felt incredibly shocked. Back then, Pan Huang only comprehended a great Tao at the age of 100. The Xiao Chen before him was only 35 years old, yet he had comprehended a complete Saber Tao. Could it be that this youth's future accomplishments would be greater than Pan Huang's? Even though he had grasped a complete great Tao because of the primordial Tao fruit, he was still able to do so. However, fortuitous encounters were a part of one's strength in the first place. Back then, Pan Huang's fortuitous encounters were no less than Xiao Chen's. Xiao Chen did not know what the other party was thinking. After he saw Qing Yun, he said directly, "Tell me how to cultivate and use great Tao energy." Qing Yun recovered her wits. When she saw that Xiao Chen's mood was not quite right, she consoled him, "The cultivation of great Tao energy requires patience. Don't be too hasty. Be careful, the Tao will scatter, and you will have to cultivate again. I'll teach you how to use great Tao energy first." When Xiao Chen heard that, he was startled. He had indeed been too hasty and could easily cause trouble. Qing Yun's reminder was very timely. All right, go on. The cultivation of the Tao is divided into 5 stages. From lowest to highest, they are, first glimpse of the Tao, small perfection, heart of the great Tao, Tao domain, and boundless Tao. Qing Yun continued, first glimpse of the Tao and small perfection are these 2 stages. To you, the Tao is just a skill. You will feel that with the support of the great Tao, the might of your martial techniques will multiply. However, without comprehending the heart of the great Tao, you will always feel that the Tao is like a mudfish. It is clearly in your hands, but you just cannot firmly grasp it. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Then he asked, in that case, how should one cultivate the Tao? The Tao cannot be cultivated. Don't interpret the Tao as cultivation. It is a kind of comprehension. You have to comprehend it. As your horizons, cultivation, and comprehension ability increase, your comprehension of the Tao will naturally increase as well. Qing Yun smiled and explained, go to the comprehension platform. Pan Huang's comprehensions are there. Go and carefully look at them. You should be able to gain some comprehension on how he used great Tao energy in battle. Many thanks. Xiao Chen felt that his understanding of the Tao had become much clearer. After thanking Qing Yun, he climbed up to the comprehension platform. 3 days from now, regardless of whether I gain anything or not, you must wake me up, Xiao Chen instructed Qing Yun as he closed his eyes and cultivated. Qing Yun nodded and said, all right. I will forcefully wake you up 7 days from now. Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he climbed up to the comprehension platform and sat down cross-legged. Immediately, an illusion appeared. The Bodhi tree, the Buddhist sect's holy tree, was above Xiao Chen, and white Bodhi flowers floated around him. The instant Xiao Chen closed his eyes, he instantly forgot about the troubles of the world, entering a state where he forgot about himself and the world. Great Tao energy did not need to be moved, silently unfolding behind him. As the Bodhi flowers floated in the air, that Tao disc flickered with a faint spiritual light, looking like it was breathing. Brat, watch carefully. This is the situation of me fighting with various experts when I am at the initial stage of comprehending the Tao. Watch carefully. How much you can comprehend will depend on your ability. Various scenes appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. The owner of these scenes was the first-generation Saber Sovereign, Pan Huang. Pan Huang was fighting with others. During that peak era of the martial Tao, he held up a saber and fought against various outstanding talents. Xiao Chen watched carefully, not daring to relax for even a moment. Every time he finished watching a battle, he felt like he gained a lot, completely immersed in it. After 7 days, Xiao Chen, who was in the cycle war chariot, suddenly startled awake. Qin Yun had forcefully woken him up and kicked out the saber sovereign medallion. How fast? Xiao Chen felt that 7 days passed too quickly. There were still many things that he had yet to comprehend in detail. However, he had to come out of closed-door cultivation. Today was the day he and Jiang Tian agreed to meet. The war chariot turned into a throne. Then Xiao Chen looked up and saw a figure quickly drifting over from the distance. After a while, Jiang Tian appeared in front of the cycle throne. As he looked at Xiao Chen, the smile on his face froze. Unexpectedly, he felt some pressure before Xiao Chen. "Xiao Chen, why did you call me here?" Jiang Tian asked after calming himself. "You should have made some progress in your investigation of the treasure master in the past half a year. I only have one request. Help me delay the treasure master 5 days from now. Don't let him rush to the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's aid," Xiao Chen said seriously. Others did not know that the blood-clad sect had the treasure master supporting them. However, Xiao Chen was very clear on this. With the treasure master making a move, unless Xiao Chen was a prime, he would not be able to save the blood-clad sect even if he used all his means. Instead, he would end up getting himself killed. Jiang Tian smiled bitterly and said, "Your request? Can it be done?" Xiao Chen believed that Jiang Tian had the ability and means to do so. The key was whether Jiang Tian was willing or not. "Very well, I agree. However, you have to agree to this old man's request. After this, you owe me a request as well," Jiang Tian said with a grave expression as light flickered in his eyes. Chapter 1467. There were only 5 days left until the half-month deadline that the blood-clad sect announced. However, the Blue Dragon King, Xiao Chen, still had not appeared. Immediately, all sorts of rumors about Xiao Chen spread. Some said that Xiao Chen was already dead, so naturally he could not appear. Some said that Xiao Chen was already crippled and was now just an ordinary person. If he went, he would just be seeking death. For the past 5 years, everyone had already forgotten about Xiao Chen's existence. In this golden age, outstanding talents appeared every day. Who would remember an outstanding talent that was already past his prime? However, due to the Dragon's Gate's commotion half a month ago and the blood-clad sect's announcement, the public opinion of the entire heavenly starry ocean immediately pushed Xiao Chen to the heart of the storm. This outstanding talent that no one paid attention to became the focus of every cultivator's discussion. There were even some nosy people who started betting on whether Xiao Chen would appear or not. The number of people betting surpassed everyone's expectations. On that day, the largest casino in the heavenly starry ocean, the Rosy Cloud Mountain Manor, officially took over. They set up professional bets on whether Xiao Chen would appear, whether he would be able to rescue the Dragon's Gate's senior elder, and whether he would be able to retreat unscathed. There were only 5 days left, but there was still no news of Xiao Chen. There were no traces of Xiao Chen at all. The news that he would not appear spread like wildfire. The odds of betting on Xiao Chen's appearance immediately soared, reaching a shocking 1 to 100. However, even with such horrifying odds, few people placed their bets. They did not believe that Xiao Chen would appear. As for those who bet that Xiao Chen would be able to rescue the Dragon's Gate's senior elder, they were even rarer. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were as rare as phoenix feathers or qilin horns. No one expected that the Blue Dragon King, who was already past his prime, could cause such a commotion after 5 years. There was no news of Xiao Chen at all. However, there was another gathering that was related to him that caught everyone's attention. The former Lunar Palace's holy daughter sent out invitations, calling all the outstanding talents of the heavenly starry ocean to gather and rescue the Dragon's Gate's senior elder. Over the past half a month, many outstanding talents showed up with invitations. The Zodiac Hall's holy son Chu Yang, the Myriad Fiend Islands Di Xinhan, the Yinyang Paradise's In Susu, and the Northern Sea Alliance's young master Yi Chen. Even Dugu Ao, who was far away in the Human Demon Sea, rushed over in the last few days. Every name on this long list was a well-known, outstanding talent of the heavenly starry ocean. This clearly showed the influence of the holy daughter. Even though she was no longer at the lunar palace, she still commanded respect. When talking about the holy daughter Yu Bingyun, her character and emotions were widely praised. Being affectionate and righteous was the best evaluation of her. Some sharp-witted people noticed that many of the people on this long list had immortal holy lands behind them, or a power second only to a holy land. This triggered some deeper guesses. Could it be that these holy lands did not dare to officially fall out with the blood-clad sect and could only use this method to silently express their stance? Of course, it was also possible that he was overthinking things. 5 days later, in the Western Sea, the blood-clad sect's headquarters, Western Dragon City, everyone's attention was focused on the place. The streets and alleys of the city were packed with people. All of them were cultivators from all over the heavenly starry ocean. There were famous outstanding talents and cultivators who were just here to watch the excitement. Of course, there was only one reason for so many cultivators rushing to Western Dragon City. This was because today was the day the blood-clad sect decided to kill the Dragon's Gate's elders. All the Dragon's Gate's elders were locked up in Fresh Blood Plaza. Rumor had it that at that time, the blood-clad sect's young master, Ao Feng, would draw lots to decide who to start with. After that, they would publicly kill a Dragon's Gate's elder every day until Shao Chen appeared. If he did not appear, they would kill him until there was no one left. The cruelty of the blood-clad sect's methods was rarely seen since ancient times. The arrogance of the blood-clad sect's actions was also rarely seen in recent years. After this matter was over, a newly risen faction dared to be so ostentatious. Aside from forcing Shao Chen to appear, the blood-clad sect also had the intention of establishing its might. After this matter was over, even if Shao Chen did not appear, the blood-clad sect's position in the heavenly starry ocean would be stable. This could be said to be killing two birds with one stone, killing two birds with one stone. The sinister plan was extraordinary. In the tallest pagoda in Western Dragon City, the blood-clad sect's sect master, Ao Lang, looked down on everyone. The aura of an ambitious and ruthless person on him was becoming more and more obvious. Ken Minghua, who was standing behind him, felt a great deal of pressure. With his back facing Ken Minghua, Ao Lang stood upright with his hands behind his back. He said indifferently, "Is there still no news of Shao Chen? No, this guy seems to have really disappeared. There's no trace of him at all. It can't be that he's really dead, right? If that's the case, it seems a bit unnecessary for us to make such a big fuss," Ken Minghua said carefully. Ao Lang's lips curled up in an unfathomable smile. Unnecessary? It was no longer important whether he appeared or not. His appearance was a pleasant surprise. If he doesn't appear, then I've more or less achieved my goal. After today, the blood-clad sect will truly be established in the heavenly starry ocean. Only then will I have the qualifications to stand on equal footing with the many holy lord. Ken Minghua performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Congratulations, sect master. You have fulfilled your wish. The day you unify the heavenly starry ocean is just around the corner." When Ao Lang heard this, he rejoiced in his heart. He could not help smiling and saying, "Who said that this is a golden age only for the outstanding talents? Everyone has the opportunity to carve out their own empire in this age of geniuses." "Sectmaster, there's one more thing. After Yu Bingyun's group entered the city, they split up." Ao Lang smiled in disdain and said, "They are just a bunch of dancing clowns. What age are we in? To think that they are still thinking of heroism and letting their emotions affect their decisions. They think that no one will notice them. How can there be a chance for them to hide in my blood-clad sect?" "Sectmaster is wise. We have been monitoring these people closely. It would be fine if they did not show themselves. However, once they do, we will definitely teach them a lesson," Ken Minghua said softly with a smile. Ao Lang nodded in satisfaction. "There's no need for you to personally monitor this matter. You are overestimating them. Go and manage Fresh Blood Plaza. I have a feeling that Shao Chen will still appear." As Ao Lang stood upright with his hands clasped behind his back and looked down at the entire city, he felt a heroic spirit that made everyone else seem like ants. "Shao Chen, I said before that one day, I will make you kneel and beg me. I absolutely meant it. Thinking back to the humiliation of the past, Ao Lang clenched his right fist. A strong murderous intent flared in his eyes, and a strange red light appeared in them. Due to this terrifying killing chi, strong winds blew in the sky above, adding a hint of desolation and coldness to the atmosphere. Fresh Blood Square used to be the West Dragon Square. However, after the West Ocean Dragon Palace changed its name, the West Ocean Dragon Palace became the West Ocean Dragon Palace. However, after the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace changed its name, the decorations in the plaza changed to a piercing scarlet color. Naturally, the name of the plaza changed as well. The Dragon's Gate's doyens had their cultivations restricted at the tall platform in the center. Chains bound their bodies as they knelt on the platform. Mo Chen, Xinyuan Zhantian, Lan Tianji, and the other people of the Dragon's Gate's upper echelon who had a deep relationship with Xiao Chen were all present. Everyone's clothes were still intact, but their complexions were somewhat pale. As they knelt on the ground, they appeared to be in sorry states. How miserable! Half a month ago, they were all the Dragon's Gate's upper echelon. Unexpectedly, half a month later, they are all prisoners. Why is Xiao Chen not showing himself yet? Seeing so many of his companions suffer, does he not blame himself at all? So what if he comes out? Now he is just a cripple. Is he here to send himself to death? That's true. I believe that this group of fellow sect members do not want him to show himself. Seeing the Dragon's Gate's doyens on the tall platform, the people below the platform discussed. Mo Chen looked for something in the crowd. When she did not discover Xiao Chen's figure, she heaved a sigh of relief. While the defenses around the plaza looked lax, the blood-clad sex experts were actually all hidden. If Xiao Chen really came, he would have fallen for the blood-clad sex trap. The young master Ao Feng sat on a chair in the back, playing with a die in his hand. This die would decide who would be the first Dragon's Gate's doyens to be killed today. Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen, listen up. I have not touched a single one of these Dragon's Gate's doyens. As long as you immediately appear before me, I can immediately release all the Dragon's Gate's doyens. Ao Feng lazily reclined on the chair and drove his primordial energy, spreading his voice to every corner of the city. His arrogant voice contained a trace of frivolity as it reverberated throughout the entire city. Clearly, Ao Feng did not hold out much hope that Xiao Chen would really appear. If Xiao Chen really appeared, he would have come long ago. There would be no need to wait until now. Ao Feng's behavior was truly asking for a beating. Unfortunately, this was the blood-clad sex territory, so he could only endure his anger. Ao Feng yawned in boredom. Then he toyed with the die. When the drifting sound grew softer and softer, he prepared to continue speaking. As you wish. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out in the blood-clad plaza. Compared to Ao Feng's arrogant voice, this voice was much weaker in aura. However, it was these 4 simple and clean words that caused the clamor in the city to come to an abrupt halt. Everyone held their breath, feeling their hearts thumping loudly. For some reason they felt nervous. An entire city had stopped breathing for him. Clang. Ao Feng showed a startled expression. The lazy smile on his face vanished, and he stood up abruptly. Then, he threw his chair down heavily and looked around, searching for the owner of that voice. But the instant Ao Feng stood up, the sky above him suddenly darkened. Before Ao Feng could react, a huge foot trampled on him. His bones shattered, and he turned into a pile of mush. Chapter 1468. Naturally, the owner of the gargantuan foot was Xiao Chen. Before the sun rose that day, he had been hiding above Fresh Blood Plaza. With Xiao Chen's strength, when he withdrew his aura, even a prime would not be able to see through him. There was no need to use Dermic World to deal with a minor character like Ao Feng. However, Xiao Chen felt angry in his heart. He had been suppressing his rage for a long time already. When it finally erupted, he could no longer hold it in. The tall platform in the plaza instantly shattered, and all the Dragon's Gate elders soared into the air. Xiao Chen, who stomped Ao Feng into meat paste, quickly recovered his figure. Wearing a mask, he sat on the throne hovering in the air. Shadowless Saber Sovereign. Many people present were very familiar with this image. This was the shadowless saber sovereign who had risen to fame in recent years. This was the shadowless saber sovereign who suppressed the deity Dao Union and the 18 demon royal halls. He was the most mysterious and unfathomable character of the Golden Age. He had risen too quickly, and there were too many mysteries and too many legends about him. Be it the newly advanced saber sovereign, suppressing the righteous and evil factions in the savage battlefield, or the widely known phrase of not touching a saber or leaving a shadow behind, there were many mysteries about the shadowless saber sovereign's identity. He had long since become one of the greatest mysteries of the Kunlun realm. Such a character was destined to be a legend in this golden age of the Kunlun realm. However, today, the shadowless saber sovereign suddenly appeared in Fresh Blood Plaza and even executed the signature martial technique of the Blue Dragon King. Could it be? There was an answer in everyone's heart. Shao Chen somersaulted in the air and returned the throne to his battle robes. A saber light flashed in his hand, and the chains on the Dragon's Gate's people in the air broke. The Dragon's Gate's people regained their freedom. Then, they moved and landed firmly on the rubble of the plaza. Shao Chen landed and stood in front of the crowd. Then he swept his gaze across the Dragon's Gate's gate elders before fixing it on Imo Chen. Fortunately, they were all here, not a single one missing. Casually removing his mask, Shao Chen said, "Sorry for making you all suffer. I could not protect everyone. Shao Chen let you all down." Delicate appearance, handsome facial features, and fluttering long hair. Who else could it be but Shao Chen? Outside the square, everyone who witnessed this scene was stunned. The famous shadowless saber sovereign, whose identity was a mystery, was actually the Blue Dragon King Shao Chen, who was deemed to be a cripple. How is this possible? Chu Yang, the holy son of Zodiac Hall, who was hiding in the crowd and was prepared to rescue the people from the dragon sect, was dumbfounded by this scene. He had personally seen the shadowless saber sovereign's strength in the savage battlefield and knew how horrifying the other party was. He looked at Shao Chen and casually took off his mask, revealing his true face. An indescribable bitterness appeared in his heart. Originally, he thought that he was already the leader of this sea region. He never expected that he would still be firmly suppressed by that person. After 5 years, not only did the Blue Dragon King Shao Chen not disappear, but he also changed his identity and made a name for himself. At this moment, Shao Chen was not the only one feeling disappointed. The outstanding talents of the heavenly starry ocean that Yu Bingyun gathered all felt a heavy pressure. Cripple? Who still dared to say that the Blue Dragon King was already crippled, that the shadowless saber sovereign was Shao Chen, and that the Blue Dragon King was the shadowless saber sovereign. The mystery was solved. However, the identity of the shadowless saber sovereign was somewhat hard to accept. Many people felt conflicted in their hearts. Unexpectedly, the shadowless saber sovereign is actually Shao Chen. In less than a day, this news will spread throughout the entire Kunlun realm. The Blue Dragon King is indeed the Blue Dragon King. In the end, the Golden Age still belongs to him. There was no need to say too much. In any case, the cultivators who came here definitely would not regret coming today. Not only did they see Shao Chen, but they also saw the shadowless saber sovereign taking off his mask. The blood-clad sex people were also completely stunned. This was not the result they wanted. They had been waiting for Shao Chen to show up. However, when Shao Chen truly appeared, they were all stunned. Even when their young master was trampled into meat paste, he did not stand up for the injustice and make a move against Shao Chen. The reason was none other than Shao Chen being the shadowless saber sovereign, a legendary character that even the Holy Lord could not do anything to. Big brother Shao Chen. Imo Chen cried tears of joy, not knowing what to say. She sobbed softly, "Sorry, the Dragon's Gate is destroyed." Xinyuan Zhantian said calmly, "Shao Chen, leave quickly. The strength of this blood-clad sect master is unfathomable. By coming here, you really fell for their trap." "Indeed. Big brother Shao Chen, leave quickly. They lured you out on purpose." The Dragon's Gate's people startled awake from their joy and tried to persuade Shao Chen to leave. "Where do you think you are going? Today, regardless of whether you are the shadowless saber sovereign or the Blue Dragon King Shao Chen, you will die here." At the crucial moment, Qin Minghua led the 8 law enforcers of the blood-clad sect, the 3 dragon kings, and many blood-clad sect experts to surround Xiao Chen and the Dragon's Gate's people. Clang! The blood-clad sect drew their weapons, and a cold, killing chi pointed at Xiao Chen. Everyone, scatter. The blood-clad sect is handling matters. Anyone in the way will die. Suddenly, countless scarlet-clad cultivators appeared in the surroundings, chasing away all the cultivators watching the excitement in the plaza. Instantly, Fresh Blood Plaza became densely packed with the blood-clad sect's elite cultivators. Several warships even flew over in the sky, sealing off all the routes. Up in the tower, after the initial shock, Ao Lang revealed a cold smile. You are seeking your own death. Even if you are the shadowless Saber Sovereign, this Fresh Blood Plaza will be your burial ground today. Dong. Don't. The tens of thousands of blood-clad sect elites walked in orderly steps, pressing in step by step and closing in on the encirclement. His footsteps were like thunder, mixed with his killing intent, rumbling continuously, shaking people's hearts. Immediately, the cultivators chased to the periphery were all frightened by this scarlet sea. The ear-splitting footsteps caused several cultivators to bleed from their 7 facial orifices. Oh no! Even if the Holy Lord arrives, he will not be able to do anything. The strength of the blood-clad sect is really terrifying. How can the Blue Dragon King block them alone? He won't die just like that, right? Seeing this scene, everyone started to worry for Xiao Chen. There was no way out, no way out. Furthermore, there were the blood-clad sect experts eyeing Xiao Chen like tigers watching their prey. How was the Blue Dragon King going to break out of this situation? No matter how one thought about it, they could not think of a way out of this situation. At best, they could only force their way out. However, what was the point of Xiao Chen coming here after abandoning the Dragon's Gate elders? Big brother Xiao Chen, just leave by yourself. There is no need to care about us, Mo Chen and the others said worriedly with grave expressions. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said indifferently, don't worry. After turning around and facing Qin Minghua and the blood-clad sect's upper echelon, Xiao Chen did not show any fear on his face. Xiao Chen, I can't help but admire you. Even at this point, you are still so bold. What's wrong? You want to attack us? I will not give you that chance. Ha! I will drag you down to death. Qin Minghua laughed loudly, and the tens of thousands of blood-clad sect elites soared into the air, charging at Xiao Chen. Despite facing such an advantage, this Qin Minghua actually wanted to use numbers to overwhelm Xiao Chen to death. Everyone cursed in their hearts at how despicable Qin Minghua was. However, there was nothing they could do. Dao! Just at this moment, Xiao Chen suddenly shouted, and a faint Dao disc appeared behind him. At this moment, the complete Saber Great Dao unleashed its full might. At this moment, the world seemed to merge with Xiao Chen, and he executed the Dao with his words. No one could block the might of the Great Dao. Pu Si. The tens of thousands of elite cultivators in the air bore the brunt of this Dao might, causing them to vomit blood. This was the might of the Great Dao. Only a small number of geniuses during the peak of the ancient era could comprehend it. This was a distant legend, an ancient myth. Today, it reappeared in the world. Dao! Xiao Chen shouted again, and the Dao disc gathered into a spot. It was resplendent and dazzling, like a powerful saber light. Then, it suddenly extended. The blood-clad sect cultivators vomiting blood in the air suffered another heavy blow. This second Dao was like a club to the head, knocking them all into the air. This scene thoroughly shocked Qin Minghua and the other blood-clad sect upper echelon. The vast Dao might forced the experts of this group of experts into a sorry state, forcing them to take a few steps back. When the tens of thousands of elites fell on their own, they all paled. Chapter 1469. 2 shouts of the Great Dao's might pushed back tens of thousands of blood-clad sect elites. Such an incredible scene made everyone feel incredulous. They had never seen or heard of such a thing before. How can this be? Qin Minghua and the other blood-clad sect upper echelon retreated far away. When they saw this scene, they paled and trembled. As Xiao Chen's long hair fluttered, He gave off a might of the great Tao from his body. There was no magnificent halo or resplendent light around him. However, as he stood there, no one dared to look at him directly. This is too horrifying. How did he do it? When the other cultivators chased away by the blood-clad sect saw this scene, they were all shocked, feeling somewhat stupefied. Why was it like this? Earlier, Xiao Chen's imposing aura and the killing qi of the tens of thousands of blood-clad sect elites made everyone's heart palpitate. How did it crumble with just 2 shouts from Xiao Chen, vomiting blood and getting defeated? Emperor Wu's aura could suppress the weak and achieve the same effect. However, everyone knew that Xiao Chen's 2 shouts were different from his so-called aura. Firstly, aura needed to be stored up. Furthermore, it needed to be against a much weaker opponent. Secondly, Xiao Chen's aura was clearly only that of a 7th heaven martial emperor, Emperor Wu. How strong could his aura be? It's the Tao. It's great Tao energy. Chu Yang of the Zodiac Hall suddenly exclaimed in the crowd. This startled Chu Yang to his senses. As he looked at Xiao Chen, his eyes were filled with extreme incredulity. The Tao was a legendary realm. Even during the peak of the martial epoch, only a few outstanding talents grasped it. After the decline of the martial epoch, great Tao energy never appeared again. It had already become a myth. However, now, not only did the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen appear as the shadowless saber sovereign, but he also displayed a godlike great Tao energy. The many outstanding talents felt like they had just woken up from a dream. There were only a few mentions of the Tao in the ancient records. Many people even doubted whether it existed or not. Is it really the Tao? If the answer was yes, then everything would be easy to understand. The might of the great Tao was not something that ordinary people could block. Compared to them, they were no longer on the same level. Let's attack together. If we don't kill him, we'll all die. Tens of thousands of the blood-clad sect elites retreated in defeat. The blood-clad sect's prestige was damaged. The blood-clad sect master would definitely be enraged. At that time, none of them would have a good ending. After all, only Ao Lang grasped the life-extending pill. That was their lifeblood. A ferocious aura flashed in Kunminghua's eyes. He composed himself and rushed over first. Regardless of whether or not Xiao Chen had really comprehended the power of the Great Path, he did not believe that he, a level 9 existence, could not deal with Xiao Chen, who was only a level 7 cultivator. Furthermore, the 3 dragon kings of the 3 seas and the 8 law enforcers of the blood-clad sect were all sovereign martial emperors. Let's go together. A strong wind blew. Kunminghua and the 11 sovereign martial emperors forcefully resisted the great Tao might. With a murderous aura that filled the sky, they pounced towards Xiao Chen. Even in this golden age, sovereign martial emperors were still peak experts. A sovereign martial emperor could hold his own and establish a rank 8 sect. Under the lead of Kunminghua, the 9th heaven emperor Wu, the 11 sovereign martial emperors soared into the air at the same time. Their auras merged and stirred up the winds and clouds. It was like the sky pressing down on Xiao Chen. Whoosh! Suddenly, the light dimmed. One could not even see their fingers when stretched out. The dilapidated plaza turned pitch black. Those were 12 sovereign martial emperors. When they pressed over, they even covered the sky. Retreat! 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 When the cultivators watching from behind saw such a lineup, they paled in fright and quickly retreated. This was the first time a battle involving so many sovereign martial emperors had appeared in the heavenly starry ocean during this golden age. When 12 sovereign martial emperors attacked together, their destructive power was clear without even needing to think. Xiao Chen's face sank. He shielded the Dragon's Gate's people behind him, encasing them in his Tao might. A huge battle could break out at any moment. The Eastern Sea Dragon King was the first to arrive. When he punched, it was like a huge dragon claw tearing bloody marks in space. Blood Dragon Claw. This was the Eastern Sea Dragon King's famous martial technique. He was very confident in his attack. Even if the Eastern Sea Dragon King could not defeat Xiao Chen, he would definitely be able to knock him back. As long as Xiao Chen took a step back, he would be able to regain control of the Dragon's Gate's elders. At that time, he would be able to obtain victory without a fight. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He swung his palm in the air, and saber lights shot out from his palm. Then, he clenched his fist and grabbed all the saber lights. He infused the great Tao energy from the saber Tao with his primordial energy. Then, he executed a distant legend. The light of the distant legend illuminated this pitch-black space. When the palm and fist clashed, the Eastern Sea Dragon King's palm broke. He vomited a mouthful of blood and was knocked back like a sandbag. The Eastern Sea Dragon King was like an insignificant hunting dog crashing into the tough body of an elephant, bouncing back. As for Xiao Chen, he was like a mountain, firmly protecting the Dragon's Gate's people behind him. The internal organs in Xiao Chen's body churned endlessly. However, he forcefully suppressed them. Only 700 strands of primordial energy remained. If he had 1,000 with the support of great Tao energy, Xiao Chen would not have been injured at all. At this moment, there was no time to recover. The 12 sovereign martial emperors took turns attacking, showing no intention of stopping. Taking turns to wear Xiao Chen down? To think that 12 sovereign martial emperors are taking turns to wear Xiao Chen down. This scene truly stunned everyone. To think that they even used such a method to deal with a mere Blue Dragon King. They completely tossed aside their dignity as sovereign martial emperors. This is bad. If this continues, Xiao Chen will die sooner or later. Indeed. He received the peak strikes of a sovereign martial emperor and did not even take a step back. He must be protecting the Dragon's Gate's elders behind him. This Xiao Chen is really foolish. If they clashed head-on like this, they would definitely suffer 800 casualties. After all, the peak strikes of a sovereign martial emperor were something that even a prime would have to consider carefully. Xiao Chen used great Tao energy to support himself and executed the myriad heaven divine fist, clashing head-on with the peak strikes of 12 sovereign martial emperors. Loud rumbles rang out endlessly. Every time they exchanged moves, a crack would appear in the city below them, causing it to tremble. After 7 loud sounds, the cultivators who had already retreated 50 kilometers away were horrified to discover that the crack had extended to their feet. They quickly withdrew and retreated all the way to the city wall before stopping. As Xiao Chen stood before the Dragon's Gate's elders, he was like an impregnable wall. Be it lightning, wind, or fire, he did not retreat even half a step. When everyone saw Xiao Chen's trembling figure after receiving the peak strikes of 11 sovereign martial emperors, they were deeply shocked. For some reason, they felt that they were too insignificant before this figure. You truly deserve to be the Blue Dragon King, Xiao Chen. You are loyal and loyal. Even at this point, you still have not retreated. However, you can die now. Ken Minghua, who was the last to make a move, smiled coldly when he saw the pale Xiao Chen leaking blood from a corner of his lips. Then he swung his sword. Ken Minghua had stored up power with the cultivation of the 9th Heaven's Emperor Wu, waiting for this moment. The tip of Ken Minghua's sword lit up, looking like a spark in the darkness. Following that, the spark burned the starry heavens with the momentum of a prairie fire. Prairie fire spark. When Ken Minghua swung his sword, it felt like the entire universe was burning. Everyone was captivated by this stunning sword strike. Chapter 1470. The lunar shadow saber, which had been dormant for 5 years, finally came out of its scabbard when Xiao Chen did his best to draw it. A resplendent saber light came from the lunar shadow saber's streamlined blade, releasing resplendent saber light magnificently. There was no startling aura. The resplendent saber light flickered for a moment before withdrawing, looking like a 1,000-year-old ancient pool. It was tranquil and distant, containing the vicissitudes of time and the glory of the past. The withdrawn saber light was now like a pool of autumn water, flickering with moonlight. It was that simple. Xiao Chen drew the saber and brandished it. It was like the shadow of the bright moon, silent and traceless. Shattering sounds resounded. The divine weapon, which was blocked by the scabbard, shattered under this saber strike. Then it shot out with a sharp force. What saber is this? How can it even break my divine weapon? The divine weapon was connected to the heart. When the life divine weapon shattered, Ken Minghua felt intense pain in his heart, causing him to vomit a mouthful of blood. Receive a saber strike from me as well. When Shao Chun grasped the lunar shadow saber again, he felt a surge of energy from the transcendent divine weapon, the lunar shadow saber. This energy continuously flowed through all the meridians in his body, replenishing all the primordial energy that he exhausted. At this moment, he became one with the saber. Shao Chun soared into the air and executed the most tyrannical move of the flawless saber technique, the dragon subduing stance. The lunar shadow saber subdued the 1,000 true dragon might of the lunar shadow saber, using it for its own use. The instant the saber chopped down, the strong true dragon might pressured Kunminghua into trembling. The divine weapon in Kunminghua's hand already shattered. He was at a loss when facing this tyrannical saber strike, not knowing how to defend. In the end, Kunminghua had no choice but to use his bare hands to block the saber. He infused all his cultivation into his hands. The instant the saber chopped down, Kunminghua pressed his hands together, trying to catch the lunar shadow saber. Unexpectedly, Kunminghua's hands found nothing. His heart suddenly sank, and horror filled his entire body. He failed to catch it. A berserk aura turned into a strong wind sweeping out. It blew away all the flaming tornadoes in the surroundings. The scene of the ruins of the plaza appeared before everyone's eyes once more. The instant the flames scattered, they happened to see Shao Chun chopping Kunminghua in half with his saber. Boom! Cracks spread everywhere on the ground. The aftershocks of this saber strike finally swept through the entire city. Rumbling sounds continuously rang out as the entire city started to collapse. The people on the city walls hurriedly flew into the air in fright. Dead, as the Emperor Wu of the Ninth Heaven, Kunminghua actually died just like that? How exactly did Shao Chun block that sword? What exactly happened within the flames that caused the entire situation to be reversed in an instant? It was completely unfathomable. Holding the saber in his hand, Shao Chun stood proudly. The reborn lunar shadow saber was much stronger than he had expected. Transcendent divine weapon, this was a true transcendent divine weapon. It surpassed divine weapons and was unparalleled. There was a faint glow on the blade, but it was neither intense nor dazzling. However, when the crowd's gazes came into contact with this light, tears of blood fell from the eyes of many of them as they felt intense pain. Saber! Everyone was incomparably alarmed. What kind of blade was this? It was flickering with luster. Even from 500 kilometers away, the saber chi contained in the saber chi could pierce and injure people's eyes. There is no such saber on the divine weapon ranking. Someone asked, feeling confused. Of the 10 transcendent divine weapons, there was only one saber, the coiling monarch time saber. After today, there will be one more. The moment Shao Chun said that, no one dared to question him anymore. Without a doubt, this was a treasure saber that surpassed divine weapons. Kunminghua's defeat was understandable. If he had known that Shao Chun had a transcendent divine weapon, he would not have died so carelessly. Good move. The Blue Dragon King truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. Even though he has been silent for 5 years, he still cannot touch the reverse scale of a dragon. The Western Sea Dragon King slowly walked out of a cloud of dust, wearing his scarlet battle armor. The Western Sea Dragon King's expression remained calm, appearing as calm as still water as he looked at the ruined Western Dragon City. When the Western Sea Dragon King saw the tens of thousands of Dragon's Gate elites lying on the ground and the blood-clad sect upper echelon frightened by Shao Chun, his expression did not change, showing neither joy nor sorrow. It was like everything before him had nothing to do with him. Actually, it did not matter. As long as the Western Sea Dragon King killed Shao Chun and snatched away the transcendent divine weapon in his hand. With the support of the Treasure Master, it would not be difficult to build an even stronger blood-clad sect. Shao Chun sheathed his saber and sized up the Western Sea Dragon King. After not seeing him for 5 years, the other party's strength had improved somewhat horribly. The scarlet battle armor on the Western Sea Dragon King looked even more strange. It was like a sea of blood splashed on the Western Sea Dragon King's clothes. Shao Chun said indifferently, "Make your move. There is nothing to say between us. I will give you 3 chances to make your move. After 3 times I will take your head." When the Western Sea Dragon King heard that, he was stunned. Then he laughed loudly, "Arrogant! I thought that I was already arrogant enough. Unexpectedly, you are even more arrogant than me. If not for your transcendent divine weapon, Qin Minghua's sword strike would have taken your life. Now, I already know all your trump cards. What are you going to use to fight me?" Xiao Chen smiled coldly in his heart. He had no intention of arguing with the other party. Before coming, he was still somewhat worried about the Western Sea Dragon King's strength. After he saw it clearly, he no longer worried. He was like the other blood-clad sect disciples. It seemed like he relied on external items, the scarlet clothes on his body, to obtain his current strength. However, the scarlet clothes on his body were of a higher grade. That was all. The Western Sea Dragon King was still a distance away from a true Holy Lord. The other Holy Lands did not make a move on the blood-clad sect because they feared the mysterious person behind the blood-clad sect. This was the saying, "When beating a dog, look at its master." It looks like you have already given up on this opportunity. In that case, I have no choice but to use the move that I saved for you in advance. The cycle heart spun silently in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness, storing up power and waiting to be unleashed. The Western Sea Dragon King revealed a cold, disdainful smile. In his eyes, Xiao Chen was already a dead man. Wanting to do whatever he wanted by relying on a transcendent divine weapon was simply a fool's dream. "Blue Dragon King, I will stand right here. Let's see how you are going to kill me." Ao Lang reared his head back and laughed maniacally. Then he unleashed his aura without hiding it. His body released a boundless scarlet light. His aura soared continuously until it approached the level of the Holy Lord before stopping. Thick scarlet clouds covered the sky and the sun. As the clouds churned, they looked like a surging sea of blood. Waves splashed up endlessly, materializing many mysterious phenomena. How strong! The crowd, who had retreated 500 kilometers, all felt a strong pressure. This pressure was already close to the level of the Holy Lord. This is the aura of the Ninth Heaven's Emperor Wu at his peak. No wonder the blood-clad sect's sect master could break the Dragon's Gate's protective formation with one strike. Isn't Xiao Chen being too careless? After fighting so many battles, could he still have a trump card to kill this Western Sea Dragon King? The crowd did not believe what Xiao Chen said about taking off Ao Lang's head with one strike. It was not that they did not believe it. Rather, they felt that it was simply impossible. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and looked at the Western Sea Dragon King, who was 1 kilometer away. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. To Xiao Chen, he would not even need the time to blink to cross 1 kilometer. Cycle in full, reversing time and space. Xiao Chen ignored the other party's arrogant laughter, wanting to erupt with the state of cycle in his sea of consciousness at full force. The resistance of the entire world appeared again. That's not right. This time, it is much stronger. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. He felt the resistance he faced this time. Compared to when he unleashed the state of cycle at full force on the desolate island, the resistance he faced was at least 50% stronger. It looked like experts had an aura around them. Reversing time and space in front of an expert was much more difficult than reversing time and space in front of an ordinary person. Damn it. Could it be that this saber strike that I specially prepared for the other party is going to end here? Up until now, even when facing 12 sovereign martial emperors, Xiao Chen had not used the state of cycle. Xiao Chen had been waiting for this moment. After suppressing it for a long time, he had not expected such a change. The sudden change caught Xiao Chen somewhat off guard. He brought out the state of cycle and held the saber scabbard with his right hand, but he could not draw it. "Idiot master, quickly draw your saber. I'll help you break his aura," Ao Jiao suddenly said at the crucial moment. When the Western Sea Dragon King saw that Xiao Chen did not move, he thought that Xiao Chen did not dare to make a move. He smiled coldly and said, "You are scared silly, right? This king's strength is no longer what it was 5 years ago. Even if I stand there without moving, you will not be able to find any openings." However, the moment the Western Sea Dragon King said that, he felt that something was wrong. However, he could not figure it out. "You are already dead." Shao Chen sheathed his saber and soared into the air. The Western Sea Dragon King laughed maniacally. "What a joke! Pooh see I." A saber light appeared on the Western Sea Dragon King's neck. Blood spurted out, and the head of the maniacally laughing Western Sea Dragon King suddenly flew off. Shao Chen, who soared into the air, seemed to have expected this. He stretched out his hand and caught the Western Sea Dragon King's head. Chapter 1471. Holding the Western Sea Dragon King's head, Shao Chen descended from the sky and stomped on Ao Lang's headless body. Bang! The strong impact immediately crushed this headless body, shattering its bones. The heart of an emperor immediately shattered and gave off a boundless scarlet spiritual light, spreading around Shao Chen like stars. Holding the blood-clad sect master's head, Shao Chen appeared stern amid this boundless scarlet light, looking like a deity. What's going on? Did anyone see clearly how Shao Chen attacked? Damn! How did this Ao Lang die after laughing? Who in the world did it? That scared me to death. His head suddenly flew off. Did I see wrongly? Damn! What exactly happened? Who saw it clearly? Tell us. The many cultivators who had already retreated far away from the city nearly went crazy. Many of them even wondered if they saw wrongly. However, the scene before them had really happened. The strong blood-clad sect master, Ao Lang, had his head in Shao Chen's hand. Like Ao Feng, Shao Chen stomped on Ao Lang's body, turning it into a pile of mud. He was deader than dead. However, everyone only saw Shao Chen sheath his saber. They did not see Shao Chen make a move. Even the outstanding talents and the experts with good eyesight did not see it. This was not the strangest thing. The strangest thing was that even the blood-clad sect master did not know how he died. The moment before his death, he clearly did not know anything at all. He even shouted at Shao Chen. It was like someone had chosen that moment with the judgment pen. When the time was up, Ao Lang would die. Strange. This simple battle was so strange that it made one's hair stand on end. No one could figure it out or understand it. However, no matter what, the result was already set in stone. Touching the reverse scale of a dragon meant death. The Blue Dragon King, Shao Chen, had remained silent for 5 years. Once again he used his actions to prove this point. Shao Chen looked at the ruins of the city and the miserable state of the blood-clad sect's tens of thousands of elite disciples. After this battle, even if Shao Chen remained silent for 100 years or even 1,000 years, he would not be able to do anything. No one would dare to recklessly attack the Dragon's Gate. The blood-clad sect's miserable state used the bloody facts to show everyone the consequences of offending the Dragon's Gate. After tossing the Western Sea Dragon King's head into the universe ring, Shao Chen felt his entire body go weak. There was a horrifying wound on his chest. Blood flowed out incessantly, and it was surrounded by black demon qi. This was what the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang left for Shao Chen before he died. From the outside, it seemed as if nothing had happened, but in fact, the moment he traveled to the future. Shao Chen exchanged moves with the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang in the time it took for a spark to fly, deciding life and death in one move. Even if Shao Chen traveled to the future, the Western Sea Dragon King would not just stand there and let Shao Chen kill him. That was not realistic. That is impossible. In the future, the Western Sea Dragon King will be a fool. His greatest advantage was the element of surprise. These 4 words should not be underestimated. When Shao Chen traveled to the future, his saber strike came without any warning. It appeared right before the Western Sea Dragon King. How could it be easy to receive the peak strike of a person who had stored up power in an unexpected situation? How difficult was it? It was like an ordinary person walking on the street normally and suddenly having a flower vase fall on their head. The second advantage was that it would be very difficult to counterattack, as Shao Chen would return to the past in the next second. There was one final advantage. Even if the Western Sea Dragon King managed to block it by luck, Shao Chen would be able to figure out how to block it. After returning to the past, Shao Chen would predict what the Western Sea Dragon King would do in advance. Then, when the Western Sea Dragon King suddenly changed his plans, he would still be flustered. This was the first time Shao Qin used the state of cycle in actual combat. While the battle appeared easy to others, Shao Qin won by luck. If not for the help of the lunar shadow saber, the state of cycle would not have been able to break free from the time and space where the Western Sea Dragon King was. Even if the Western Sea Dragon King managed to break free, the time left for him to make a move would be much shorter. Even so, there was still a wound on Shao Chen's chest. He had indeed won by luck. The state of cycle was boundlessly mysterious. However, Shao Qin had only scratched the surface of it. Perhaps it could not even be considered scratching the surface. It was too unfortunate that the cycle arts had only the first chapter. Big brother Shao Qin. The Dragon's Gate elders, who had been protected by Shao Qin, rushed over and surrounded Shao Qin. Shao Qin barely managed to stop his wound. Then he smiled, and a Dragon's Gate's warship flew out of the universe ring. He said, "I said that I would bring you away. Come back with me." After saying that, Shao Chen's body swayed slightly. He was too tired. Emo Qin stepped forward and quickly supported Shao Qin. Then, the group leaped onto the Dragon's Gate's warship. There was no time to explain. They had to leave this troublesome place first. The remnant forces of the blood-clad sect had already scattered the instant the Western Sea Dragon King died. The injured upper echelons of the blood-clad sect fled even faster. The huge blood-clad sect collapsed in an instant. This made everyone sigh. Compared to the Holy Lands, these upstart sects still lacked accumulations. They could not withstand great winds and waves. After the Dragon's Gate suffered this calamity, it would definitely undergo a nirvanic rebirth. After unifying the Western Sea, the Dragon's Gate's prestige would soar, and it would become the center of the region. As for Shao Qin, he would continue the legend of the Blue Dragon King. The identity of the shadowless Saber Sovereign would make his experiences even more legendary. Without a doubt, the Kunlun realm's luck belonged to him. As the crowd watched the Dragon's Gate's warship leave, they felt complicated emotions welling up in their hearts. In the short span of half a day, their emotions as outsiders had experienced many ups and downs. Several times, their hearts felt like they could not take it anymore, about to jump out. The shock that the Blue Dragon King, Shao Qin, brought them was simply too incredible. They probably would not be able to digest this within half a month. Chu Yang and the other outstanding talents around the holy daughter Yu Bingyun felt indescribably bitter. Originally, they were invited by the holy daughter to rescue the people of the Dragon's Gate. Now that they thought about it, they were too naive. The blood-clad sect was much stronger than they thought. If they had really attacked, their fates would have been very unsightly. However, these outstanding talents were rather open-minded. Many of them were even on good terms with Shao Qin. When they saw that Shao Qin was not only fine but even stronger than before, they rejoiced. For example, the Northern Sea Alliance's young alliance chief, Yi Chen, the human demon seas Dugu Ao, and the myriad fiend islands Di Xinhan. What a fellow! This fellow really hid it from us. After this, we will all go to the Dragon's Gate together. We have to harass Shao Qin. Ha! Yi Chen laughed very happily without a care in the world. The bitterness in the others' hearts had yet to fade. They simply could not bring themselves to laugh. When Yi Chen saw that no one replied, he laughed dryly in embarrassment and did not say anything more. This was how Chu Yang felt. From the moment Shao Qin took off his mask, his heart was in a mess. Bingyun, I did not manage to help much this time. Sorry for the ridicule. If you have any instructions in the future, this Chu will definitely be the first to rush over. Yu Bingyun quickly said, "Young Master Chu is too polite. No matter what, everyone coming is a show of your concern for this little girl. Bingyun will definitely remember this." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Unfortunately, Miss Bingyun already has someone in your heart. I'll take my leave first. Like I said, although this Chu is weak, if you need help in the future, just say the word and I will definitely be the first to rush over." Although Chu Yang felt bitter in his heart, he did not lose his grace. He performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. The group of outstanding talents left one after another. Yu Bingyun thanked them one by one. Although her efforts did not work, there might be a perfect result. The smile on Yu Bingyun's face already expressed her current mood. Speaking of which, why did Xiaochen change his identity? Hiding himself is not his style, Yichen said with some conflict after thinking hard. The demon mixed blood Dugu Ao said indifferently, even if you use your toes to think, if he exposed his identity, how could the primes give him the chance to grow to such a level? That's right. Why did I not think of that? Yichen smacked his forehead, startled awake. That's not right. You are indirectly calling me stupid. However, Dugu Ao ignored Yichen. After saying goodbye to Yu Bingyun, he left. At the same time, in the center of the heavenly starry ocean, in the largest sea market controlled by the Treasure Master, the mysterious Treasure Master was currently playing Go with the Geomaster Jiang Tianxia in a pavilion above the gigantic immortal statue. The black and white Go stones competed with each other on the crisscrossing Go board. Treasure Master, after not playing for so many years, your Go skills have deteriorated. Or are you purposely letting me win? If you let me win again, you will really lose. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and placed down a white Go stone, chopping down a large dragon. Then, he stretched out his hand and picked up the black Go stones one by one. The white Go stones instantly held the advantage. The Treasure Master smiled faintly and said, "Old Jiang, I never let you win. It is just that my Go board is larger than the one in your heart." Ding. Right after the Treasure Master spoke, he tapped the table with his finger. The wooden Go board instantly turned to dust, and the Go stones fell to the table. When the dust settled, Jiang Tian was shocked to discover that the table, which was several times larger than the Go board, had crisscrossed and formed a new Go board. The black and white Go stones did not change. However, now that the white Go stones fell into this larger Go board, the white Go stones, which originally held the advantage, immediately became dangerous. Chapter 1472. He did not seem to be as unfathomable as he appeared before Jiang Tian and the others. Many years ago, there was such a person as well. Xiaochen suddenly rose up and ruined the Myriad Law Fiend Master's plans, leaving an eternal scar. The Myriad Law Fiend Master took a deep breath, his expression changing involuntarily. I always suspected that the ancient people made this up. How could it possibly exist? The Bright Moon Empress spoke again, stating that Xiaochen had already attained the Tao. The more the heaven-punishing corpse god spoke, the more horrified he felt. If we still do not attack, we will not have any more chances. Seeing that the Myriad Law Fiend Master was about to leave, the Bright Moon Empress cautiously led Jiang Tian away. After saying that, the Myriad Law Fiend Master immediately left, not lingering. The Treasure Master toyed with the puppet pearl in his hand as a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. The Treasure Master smiled and said, "Even if we do not give up, we will not be able to hold on for long. After another 2 or 3 years, the side effects of the blood-clad battle armor will erupt. At that time, we will all be crippled. Everything in the world has its own rules. Those that succeed in one go are not good." This little fellow's growth is really startling. Perhaps he managed to grow to such a level in a moment of carelessness. The Myriad Law Fiend Master sighed. This was an unprecedented major matter. Never before had the 3 primes of the deity Tao Union felt that the matter was serious and wanted to discuss it together. He even grasped the legendary Tao. Given some time, he will definitely surpass us. However, the Treasure Master did not give him that chance. He did not want to drag himself into unnecessary danger, so he left after saying so. This old thief is really smart. He was already very careful, but he still discovered him. He left after saying so without hesitation. The Bright Moon Empress muttered with a slight frown. After being stunned for a while, Jiang Tian laughed loudly. No matter how big the Go puzzle is, so what? When the so-called chess pieces go beyond one's control, everything is nonsense. In the Cactus Palm City, the Treasure Master, who was in a secret room, just learned of the blood-clad sect's destruction from the young Treasure Master, Yiling Qiyan. "You make the decision," the Dongyue Ghost Emperor said as he looked at the strongest of the 3, Emperor Forsaken. Jiang Tian smiled and said, "Are you trying to incite me to defect? I don't think it's true either. However, according to the news I received, he seems to have really attained the Tao, the great Tao of the saber. In Xiao Chen's heart, he had already decided that the blood-clad sect was a sacrificial pawn. He did not care about the gains or losses. No one below the Supreme Being level could defeat him. The moment these words came out, Jiang Tian and the myriad law fiend master were both shocked, clearly surprised. Those that could not be seen through were always the ones that people feared the most. The treasure masters seemed to be playing this game. However, after verifying it from many places, the news was confirmed. Xiao Chen was the shadowless saber sovereign. Not only was he not crippled, but he was also promoted to become a new giant of this world. So, the treasure master stood up and waved his hand. Then he quickly left the pavilion as if he wanted to avoid something, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The treasure master smiled but did not reply. Then he said softly, "Senior Jiang, you have reached great heights in the geomancy lineage. You traversed the yin and yang realms with ease, but you also met your limits. Xiao, do you want to make a move?" The heaven-punishing corpse god was the most direct. He went straight to the point, unable to restrain his killing intent. Jiang Tian asked sullenly, "What exactly do you want to do?" Jiang Tian sighed. "If it were possible, I really would not want to see him make a move. He gives me a feeling that it is fine if he does not make a move. However, once he makes a move, the entire heavenly starry ocean will fall into a calamity." Compared to Xiao Chen destroying the blood-clad sect, the news of him grasping the saber great Tao was what truly moved the myriad law fiend master. Fortunately, we already obtained the puppet pearl. Even if the blood-clad sect is destroyed now, it will not affect the overall situation. The treasure master probably did not expect the blood-clad sect to suffer such a heavy blow. It doesn't matter. Whatever you think, goodbye. It was even rumored that even if a prime appeared, they might not be able to do anything to Xiao Chen. When the Bright Moon Empress received a letter, her expression changed slightly, appearing incredibly shocked. Her eyes filled with shock. "Let's go as well. We cannot remain in this place for long." However, if it was destroyed now, the Bright Moon Empress would probably be so frustrated that she would vomit blood. The Go game had not changed. It was just that the Go board had grown larger, and the situation had flipped. Even the treasure master, Emperor Forsaken, did not view him as a true enemy. This is unexpected. It looks like the plan has to be brought forward. After Ying Zongtian, who was like a teacher and a friend to Xiao Chen, came to know, he revealed a gratified expression. The treasure master probably guessed that someone would cause trouble in the blood-clad sect during their conversation earlier. However, he absolutely did not expect that someone would destroy the entire blood-clad sect. The Bright Moon Empress showed a complicated expression. However, she still told the treasure master everything that she knew. Many years later, there was another person who had escaped his control. The treasure master was not angry at the losses from the destruction of the blood-clad sect. Instead, this matter surpassed his plans and control. Go out, I understand. However, some people just cannot resist the temptation. Even though they know the consequences, they still believe that they will be an exception. The treasure master controlled his rage and waved his hand to let Yi-Ling out. The treasure master did not give Yi-Ling a chance to show the world his true strength and trump cards. The treasure master said indifferently, "I know your purpose in calling me out. I am just a sacrificial pawn. I've already achieved my goal. If there are any more gains, that would be a pleasant surprise." At first, the cyclic astral lord was stunned for a moment. Then he rejoiced. With the existence that comprehended a Tao, his strength will improve further. It should not be difficult for him to complete the Kunlun road. After a long silence, the treasure master sighed and muttered to himself. Between the giant statue's fingers, the three of them were as small as ants. The statue lowered its eyes, as if it could see everything in front of it clearly. "I just received news that Xiao Chen already killed the blood-clad sect master, Ao Lang. He also destroyed the entire blood-clad sect's headquarters. The upper echelons of the blood-clad sect all fled with severe injuries." When Jiang Tian heard this, his expression changed slightly. "You gave up on the blood-clad sect? Even if the Holy Lord came personally, he would not be able to destroy the blood-clad sect. However, Shao Chen managed to do it. Yi Ling felt somewhat dissatisfied, unwilling to believe that this news was true. He seems to have grasped the Tao. Finally, he could truly stand on his own. This was the best news he had heard before the arrival of the Devil Tribulation. The strength that Shao Chen displayed in Western Dragon City was simply too startling. After 5 years of silence, Shao Chen shocked the entire Kunlun realm with one brilliant feat. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor shook his head and said, "No." Back then, before he advanced to Martial Emperor, he was already hard to kill. Now that he has grown to such a level, it will be even harder to kill him. The Myriad Law Fiend Master said softly, "He has been cautious all his life. How could he let himself fall into danger so easily? This fellow is too mysterious." Although they did not really care about the blood-clad sect, they still understood the blood-clad sect's strength. When the Treasure Master heard this, he was startled. The usually calm and unfathomable Treasure Master showed anger for the first time. "No, I have to make a trip to Heavenly Star Island. I have to figure this out." 2 figures appeared out of nowhere behind Jiang Tian. The Bright Moon Empress and the Myriad Law Fiend Master, the 2 primes, appeared silently. "We kept getting the wrong information. The Shadowless Saber Sovereign is Shao Chen." Not only did Shao Chen appear in Western Dragon City, but he is also much stronger than he was 5 years ago. As for the 3 primes on the Deity Dao Union side, they were all shocked. Emperor Forsaken, the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God, and the Dongyue Ghost Emperor gathered together to discuss this matter. "I want to tell you that this world is very big. You still have a lot of room for improvement. As long as you are willing, I can satisfy you." Interesting. Based on the 2 primes' words, it seemed like they intended to work together to test the Treasure Master. At the same time, the other primes of the Kunlun realm received the news. Jiang Tian asked, "What's wrong?" Chapter 1473. Emperor Forsaken showed an uncertain expression. The other 2 did not know what he was thinking. The 2 did not want to disturb Qitian, so they could only wait. After a long time, Emperor Forsaken said coldly, "There's no need. He has not reached the point of death yet. Wait until he opens the doors of the Blue Dragon Palace. Then he can die." The Blue Dragon Palace? The Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God felt confused. Why was Emperor Forsaken still nurturing a tiger at this time? "That's right. It is the Blue Dragon Palace." Emperor Forsaken said indifferently, "Back then, the Qing Emperor could rise up because of this Blue Dragon Palace. Although they are all human holy lands, the Phoenix's Passion Palace, the White Emperor City, and the Divine Martial Gate do not have a similar holy palace. Have you thought about the reason? This was a matter from 10,000 years ago. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God did not understand. Furthermore, they did not pay much attention to this information. Emperor Forsaken was different. 10,000 years ago, the deity race was even stronger than it was now. However, it still fell to the hands of the Qing Emperor and his Dragon's Gate. For the past 10,000 years, the deity race had been investigating the Blue Dragon Palace's origins, spending a lot of manpower and resources. I never thought about it. Could there be some other mysteries? The Dongyue Ghost Emperor's eyes flickered as he looked at Emperor Forsaken with some urgency. The Blue Dragon Palace was an even more horrifying existence than the 8 great forbidden lands. It would be a lie to say that they were not tempted. Of course, there are other mysteries. 10,000 years ago, this Blue Dragon Palace did not exist. Do you understand what I mean? That is to say, the Blue Dragon Palace did not come from the Kunlun realm but from the great realm of the abandoned land. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God were greatly startled. They had never heard of such a secret before. This was their first time hearing about it. Is this true? The 3 holy masters have personally confirmed it. How can it be fake? Emperor Forsaken said in a deep voice, "The reason why the Qing Emperor was able to rise back then was because of the Blue Dragon Palace, and this Blue Dragon Palace contains the inheritance of the Dragon clan from the outer realm." The Qing emperor inherited the legacy of the extraterritorial dragon clan. That's why he became so powerful and became the strongest person in the post-ancient era. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor was still a little confused. Then, why didn't the legacy of the other 3 Holy Masters' lands appear? Only the legacy of the Dragon Sect has appeared. Emperor Forsaken replied, I don't know. Only by entering the Blue Dragon Temple will we know the real answer. Therefore, we can't touch Xiaochen now. We can only kill him if he opens the door of the Blue Dragon Temple. The heaven-punishing corpse god suddenly said, Why are you willing to tell us such important information today? Things are already beyond my control. Don't worry. If we really enter the Blue Dragon Temple, the 3 of us will definitely split the benefits equally. Clearly, the initial silence was because Emperor Forsaken was considering whether to tell the Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the heaven-punishing corpse god. Now, it looked like Emperor Forsaken had already made his decision. Xiaochen's growth had exceeded expectations. Xiaochen had forced the heaven-punishing corpse god and the Dongyue Ghost Emperor to make a compromise, truly joining hands with the heaven-punishing corpse god and the Dongyue Ghost Emperor. As for how to decide, it will depend on the 2 of you. If the 2 of you insist on killing Xiaochen now, I will not force you. In that case, I won't force it. I'll definitely do my best to eliminate this threat. Emperor Forsaken tossed the ball to the 2 and did not say anything else. After a while, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the heaven-punishing corpse god decided not to kill Xiaochen for now. The result was within Emperor Forsaken's expectations. No one could resist the temptation of the Blue Dragon Temple. On Heavenly Star Island, on the Dragon's Gate's main peak, Xiaochen treated his injuries in his courtyard. This place was one of the few places that had not been destroyed by the blood-clad sect. The other injuries on Xiaochen's body were not particularly severe. The only problematic one was the wound on his chest. Before Ao Lang died, he had infused all his cultivation into that strike. If not for Xiaochen's already strong physical body, his heart would have shattered. This strike would have shattered Xiaochen's heart on the spot. At the foot of the cliff, the Dragon's Gate's doyens were gathering the remnant disciples on the island to deal with the Dragon's Gate's funeral matters. Aside from being mentally fatigued, these people recovered rather quickly after they were freed from their restraints. Suddenly, Xiaochen felt a strong aura sweep through Heavenly Star Island. Then, that person quickly flew towards him. This person was very strong. Aside from Xiaochen, no one else discovered it. Xiaochen opened his eyes and happened to see the Myriad Law Fiend Master land in front of him. When Xiaochen saw the other party, he felt somewhat shocked. In Xiaochen's impression, this old man did not care about many things in the outside world. In the Myriad Fiend Island, even his descendants found it extremely difficult to meet this old man. Back then, when Xiaochen went to the Myriad Fiend Island to meet this old man, many of the Myriad Fiend Island's disciples envied him. Senior, why are you here? Xiaochen asked as he stood up and stopped his cultivation, giving up on treating his injuries for now. Seeking the Tao. The Myriad Law Fiend Master was very straightforward, not hiding anything. With just these 2 simple words, Xiaochen already knew the Myriad Law Fiend Master's purpose. He probably already knew about the battle in the blood-clad sect. That's right. This junior has indeed grasped a complete Saber Tao. However, this is just the first step. I still have a long way to go. Xiaochen answered honestly, not hiding anything. The Myriad Law Fiend Master's face lit up in joy. Then, he revealed an excited expression. You really grasped Great Tao energy? Xiaochen nodded. With a thought, Great Tao energy spread out, forming a faint Tao disk behind him that gave off a bright light. Then, the Tao disk condensed into a point and continuously elongated. The Tao might on Xiaochen's body grew as well. Boom! The Myriad Law Fiend Master slowly felt some pressure. He had no choice but to drive his aura to block. Enough! You are already injured. There is no need to continue demonstrating. The ancients did not lie to me. A great Tao truly exists in the world. However, this old man is stupid. I'm afraid that I will not be able to comprehend it in this lifetime. The Myriad Law Fiend Master indicated for Xiaochen to stop. Then he said somewhat disappointedly, At his age, he had not comprehended a Tao yet. He basically had no fate with the Tao. His thoughts were already fixed. It would be very difficult to change. If it were 1,000 years ago, he would have gotten Shaochen to demonstrate and explain to the Myriad Law Fiend Master. Given his comprehension ability, he would have had a 50% chance of grasping Great Tao energy. Following that, the Myriad Law Fiend Master asked Shaochen about the mysteries of the Tao and how it worked. Shaochen was not stingy, telling the Myriad Law Fiend Master everything he could. No matter what, the Myriad Law Fiend Master had helped him during his great tribulation of wind and fire. He owed him a great debt, so what he said was nothing. After a long time, the Myriad Law Fiend Master asked, "Do you blame me for not making a move when the Dragon's Gate was destroyed?" Shaochen shook his head. Senior, you are not obligated to defend the Dragon's Gate. You cannot stand on the moral high ground and criticize others. It's good that you can think that way. It's not that I don't want to help. Let me tell you the truth. The people who can help you are all delayed by all kinds of seemingly coincidental things. The Myriad Law Fiend Master smiled and said, however, after that, the blood-clad sex people did not dare to go overboard. When the Dragon's Gate's elders were captured, they did not suffer any abuse. Shaochen was startled. His thoughts moved like lightning. After thinking for a while, he said, "Someone wants to test me?" "That's right. I'm sure you've guessed who it is. However, right now, he should be regretting his underestimation of your strength." The Myriad Law Fiend Master continued, "Your appearance spoiled his plans. The heavenly starry ocean will probably descend into chaos in advance. Given that person's means, it is fine if he does not make a move. However, once he does, the entire heavenly starry ocean will suffer a calamity." Of course, the answer to who that person was went without saying. Shaochen asked doubtfully, "Why don't the three of you primes work together to make a move? Could it be that the three primes are not sufficient to defeat him?" Of course, the three primes can defeat him. However, because they cannot figure him out, they do not dare to make a move. No one can bear the consequences of falling out with him. They can only keep their guard up and make their own preparations. The Myriad Law Fiend Master sighed softly. The situation is even more complicated than you imagine. Attacking the Dragon's Gate is just a prelude. Cultivate properly and make use of this rare period of peace to raise your strength further. The Great Tribulation is approaching. A storm will arrive soon, a storm that will destroy the world. Chapter 1474. Senior, aren't you being too serious? Seeing the Myriad Law Fiend Master's stern appearance, Shaochen felt that he had gone overboard. The Myriad Law Fiend Master shook his head and said, "I am absolutely not joking. I have lived for so many years. I have experienced and know much more than you do. A long time ago, it wasn't particularly difficult to leave this land of exile. Most of the vanished existences in history left. However, now, the Kunlun Road is becoming more and more like a dead end, practically a dead end. In the past, the Thunder King was still around. At the very least, he could handle everything. Now that the Thunder King is not around, no one is willing to submit to anyone else. The Kunlun realm is in a state of disunity, unable to withstand a great calamity. Right now, you are the only hope of replacing the Thunder King. You are a variable, the bearer of luck of the Kunlun realm." After saying that, the Myriad Law Fiend Master left behind a bottle of the fiend race's holy medicine for treating injuries before leaving quietly. Shaochen entered deep thought. He felt a strange pressure. This Kunlun realm was no longer calm. However, it was still calm in the eyes of the Myriad Law Fiend Master. A true storm would be much more horrifying than this. Destroying the world. If I lose, will everyone in the Kunlun realm die? With this thought, Shaochen felt his hair stand on end. He really did not want to see this familiar world destroyed. Shaochen, don't overthink. Just do your best. It is not fair to place the pressure of the entire world on you. Ao Jiao, who was in the lunar shadow saber, consoled Shaochen. Shaochen said helplessly, "If I were really the bearer of luck and inherited the heavenly Tao's luck, then it would not be as simple as doing my best." Right now, Shao Chen grasped great Tao energy and the supreme magic skill, the divine lightning eye. His potential was limitless. Surpassing Prime was originally an unreachable goal. Now he was not far from it. Luck could not be given to one for free. The heavenly Tao had always been fair. It was a form of self-protection. Although it did not have life or intelligence, it did not want the Kunlun realm to be destroyed. If he failed to do so, his luck would probably turn into misfortune, and many inauspicious things would happen. However, Ao Jiao said a lot. Regardless of whether she believed in fate or not, there were many things that she just had to do her best. If it still didn't work, then there was no other way. People didn't need to trouble themselves. After taking the recuperation medicine left behind by the Myriad Law Fiend Master, Shao Chen started to recover quickly. The wound on his chest healed at a visible rate. It looked like the medicinal pill that the Myriad Law Fiend Master gave him was a trump card. Presumably, after listening to Shao Chen talk about so many cultivation methods, the other party would feel embarrassed not to express his gratitude. After recovering from his injuries, just as Shao Chen was about to go into seclusion, an unexpected guest arrived. The one who came was the Cyclic Astral Lord, one of the 3 primes of the heavenly starry ocean. He was also the person who had a 100-year agreement with Shao Chen. Shao Chen wasn't surprised by this person's arrival, but he didn't expect him to arrive so quickly. Little brother Shao Chen, congratulations to little brother Shao Chen for killing Ao Lang with 1 saber strike. No one under Prime can defeat you. After comprehending great Tao energy, it will be easy for you to surpass Prime in the future. The Cyclic Astral Lord's handsome face showed a spring breeze-like smile, making one feel very comfortable. However, Shao Chen knew who the other party was. He replied indifferently, "The Cyclic Astral Lord is too serious. I don't dare to say that I surpass Prime. I'm not here for anything else. I just want to tell you to hurry up and cultivate. You don't have much time left. Otherwise, if you can't fulfill the agreement, you will really die." The Cyclic Astral Lord still had a wide smile on his face. However, his words were not polite at all. The oath stone is no joke. If you fail to fulfill the oath you made, the consequences will definitely come true. Shao Chen loathed this person from the bottom of his heart. He said coldly, "Thank you for your auspicious words. Don't worry. I will do it. It's good that you remember. Don't disappoint me." The Cyclic Astral Lord did as he said. After reminding Shao Chen, he laughed and left. After the Cyclic Astral Lord left, the Bright Moon Empress and Jiang Tian, whom Shao Chen had not seen for a long time, appeared together. Furthermore, they were all major characters. The 3 primes of the heavenly starry ocean were all here. Like the Myriad Law Fiend Master, these 2 came for the same purpose, to ask about the Tao. Shao Chen did not find this troublesome. He repeated what he had said to the Myriad Law Fiend Master. After the 2 heard it, they both gained a lot of comprehensions. This was especially so for the Bright Moon Empress. Her pretty eyes seemed to flicker with starlight. Although he couldn't comprehend the Tao, it would more or less be beneficial to his cultivation. "Shao Chen, it looks like you are different from the Qing Emperor back then. I had too deep a prejudice against you in the past. Please don't take it to heart." Shao Chen wondered if he had heard wrong. The Bright Moon Empress actually apologized to him. He smiled bitterly to himself. Indeed, in the end, strength reigned supreme in this world. Even a noble and cold existence like the Bright Moon Empress would still show respect to him after he was strong enough. "Palace Master is too polite. I have never harbored any hatred for the Lunar Palace." This was the truth, not a lie. Shao Chen did not feel any hatred for the Lunar Palace. Of course, he did not have a good impression of it either. After the 2 left, a large number of cultivators arrived. They were either the holy masters of holy lands or the clan heads of ancient noble clans. These were all major characters of the heavenly starry ocean, people who were rarely seen. However, today, they all rushed to the rubble of the Dragon's Gate. In the end, Shao Chen had no choice but to close the doors and reject all guests, getting Imo Chen to spread the word. 3 months later, when the Dragon's Gate was rebuilt, he would invite everyone to a banquet. Otherwise, Xiaochen would not even need to cultivate after receiving so many people endlessly. The arrival of the 3 primes made Xiaochen understand that time was of the essence. He needed to cultivate quickly and improve his strength. Then he would make a trip to the Blue Dragon Palace. At this moment, the trip to the Blue Dragon Palace was naturally urgent. The trip to the Blue Dragon Palace was very important. Xiaochen could not afford to make any mistakes. He needed to be strong enough to face a prime before he could go. Otherwise, he would be at the mercy of others. Although the 3 primes said that Xiaochen would soon surpass prime, Xiaochen was not lost. However, Xiaochen did not lose himself. Right now, the gap between him and a prime was still rather large. At the very most, he would only have some trump cards that could slightly threaten a supremacy. 5 years ago, Xiaochen had seen a prime make a move during his great tribulation of wind and fire. He knew how horrifying a prime's strength was. Every single existence that could become a supreme being was definitely not an ordinary person. They were all incredibly powerful. Naturally, the first thing Xiaochen needed to do was to recover his primordial energy. Then, he would continue to refine it until he could no longer cultivate. After searching through the universe ring, Xiaochen took out all the primordial pills he had. There was a total of 2,000. This was a large number. If Xiaochen absorbed and refined all of them, it would be sufficient to completely recover his primordial energy or even become even denser. While Xiaochen cultivated, the entire heavenly starry ocean became much more peaceful, as the myriad law fiend master expected. It was like a sign before a storm. After the destruction of the blood-clad sect, the treasure master seemed to have stopped all his plans and chose to hide, vanishing from everyone's sight. The deity Dao Yunyan's side in the Kunlun realm also quieted down, not taking any action. It was like they were waiting for an opportunity. Emperor Forsaken, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, and the heaven-punishing corpse god rarely showed themselves. The deity Dao Yunyan's actions surpassed many people's expectations. Originally, several people thought that the deity Dao Yunyan would seek trouble for the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen. Who could have imagined that the deity Dao Yunyan would remain so calm, not reacting at all? However, these peaceful days would be broken one day. The great battle triggered by the Blue Dragon Palace far surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. Chapter 1475. 1 month later, Xiaochen refined all 2,000 primordial pills, and his cultivation finally returned to its peak. Xiaochen now had 1,000 strands of primordial energy. He already had such a cultivation in the first place. After he refined it again, every strand of primordial energy was like a roaming dragon in the heart of an emperor, already possessing the form of a true dragon. It was no longer like before, when it only had an embryonic form and could not reach such a level. Xiaochen felt that he could no longer cultivate. He could no longer cultivate primordial energy, as if there was an invisible wall blocking it. No matter what, the primordial energy of the outer realm could not advance his primordial energy any further. Xiaochen had already reached the bottleneck of Emperor. Unless he broke through to Prime, he could not advance further. However, the path that Xiaochen took was too special. He could not even be considered Emperor Wu, so how could he break through to Prime? How should he cultivate in the later realms? This was truly frustrating. This was a very awkward realm. Xiaochen was only 35 years old. In the Kunlun realm, he could be considered an outstanding talent at this age. Despite being so young, Xiaochen could no longer cultivate. He clearly still had vast potential to dig out. Unfortunately, Xiaochen already stood at the peak of this abandoned land. There was no other path for him to take. The Purple Emperor's door hovered in the middle of the heart of an emperor. This piqued Xiaochen's interest. He remembered that the Emperor's door contained an incredibly vast energy. Back then, it only opened a small crack, and it allowed Xiaochen to defeat Di Wuk with one punch the instant he jumped off the Emperor's road. Perhaps the mysterious Emperor's door was a direction for Xiaochen to continue advancing his cultivation. Unfortunately, the strands of primordial energy turned into roaming dragons and circled the surroundings. No matter how the primordial energy attacked, it could not shake this Emperor's door at all and could only return empty-handed. Perhaps the only way forward was to seek the answer in that mysterious blue dragon palace. Let's try again. Xiao Chen decided to attack that purple emperor's door again. Now that Xiao Chen had returned to his peak, he might have a chance of pushing open the emperor's door. With this thought, Xiao Chen steeled himself. The strands of primordial energy that looked like true dragons intertwined and intertwined. The 1,000 strands of primordial energy intertwined and twisted together like hemp ropes. The primordial energy took the shape of a huge dragon. The purple dragon scales on its body were clearly visible, looking like a true lightning dragon. The emperor's door floated in the air, its 2 purple doors tightly shut. In this heart of an emperor, there was silence and suppression. Charge. Xiao Chen's heart was filled with heroism. He decisively controlled the primordial energy that was twisted together and charged toward the emperor's door. With a loud bang, the primordial energy crashed into the emperor's door and immediately scattered. The entire heart of an emperor turned chaotic and blurry. When the intimidating power rebounded, Xiao Chen could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. When the primal chaos dissipated, Xiao Chen looked at the tightly shut emperor's door and smiled bitterly. It still didn't work. It was just that he did not notice that the originally tough primordial energy had become much softer after seeping into the traces of spiritual liquid. Hard mixed with soft. Hard and soft advanced together. The primordial chaos power invisibly advanced. However, Xiao Chen, who was focused on the emperor's door, did not notice this subtle change. Never mind. Although my cultivation has stagnated, there are still many areas where I can improve. After wiping away the blood at the corner of his lips, Xiao Chen shook his head and stopped thinking about this problem. Great Tao energy, the divine lightning eye, the perfection of the flawless saber technique, the comprehension of the Taiji Dao, and so on. There were still many areas where he could improve his strength. Xiao Chen had his own priorities. As for which area he should improve, he already had a balance in his heart. The only trump card that he did not expose was the divine lightning eye, a supreme magic skill. By relying on the universe origin Dao fruit, Xiao Chen had not only comprehended great Dao energy, but his magic energy had also soared. After Yuaning, there were still nascent soul transformation, void refinement, and great realization. Now, Xiao Chen had already broken through soul transformation and reached the void refinement realm. However, Xiao Chen would not spend too much time on immortal cultivation. Even immortal venerates were only SOS. There was no need to spend too much time. As long as Xiao Chen's magic energy increased, he could easily execute magic skills like the divine lightning eye and dermic world. After that, Xiao Chen spent most of his time on comprehending the divine lightning eye. He had to cultivate it to the 3rd layer and layer on 3 lightning tribulations at the same time. He spent the remaining time on cultivating great Tao energy, continuing to stabilize his current cultivation. He set aside the flawless saber technique, myriad heaven divine fist, the Taiji Dao, the fish dragon art, and other movement techniques for now. He just needed to familiarize himself with them. Peaceful days passed just like that. Time passed bit by bit. At the foot of the mountain, the Dragon's Gate was being rebuilt. Back then, although the buildings in the city were destroyed, the foundations were still there. The formation lines buried underground were only damaged and not destroyed. The rebuilding proceeded very quickly. In less than 1 month, the outline of the city appeared. With the entire sect working together to rebuild a city, with the help of various factions, a new Heaven Dragon city would appear on Heavenly Star Island in less than 2 months. The sun rose and set. Clouds gathered and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Xiao Chen's comprehension ability was astonishing. He had already cultivated the divine lightning eye to the 2nd layer. With a thought, he could layer 2 lightning tribulations in his right eye and send them out. However, he failed to break through to the 3rd layer of the divine lightning eye after several attempts. Magic energy surged in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness as he formed hand seals with both hands. Talisman seals flickering with light condensed in his sea of consciousness, filling the sky like snow as they entered the 10,000 tribulation divine lightning. After Xiao Chen formed the final hand seal, The originally dim and motionless 10,000 tribulation divine lightning spun quickly, shooting out thousands of electric lights. The 10,000 tribulation divine lightning illuminated the entire sea of consciousness. Everything in the sea of consciousness lost its color before the light of this divine lightning, its own light covered. When the immortal epic's lightning tribulation ancestor released its light, everything lost its color. Shaochen felt an intense swelling in his right eye. All the electric light condensed into a seed and entered it. The seed was buried in the depths of his right eye. The magic energy in his sea of consciousness became its nourishment, quickly draining. When it drained half of the magic energy, the lightning tribulation seed broke out of the ground and bloomed, producing 2 flowers. The black flower had 9 petals that spun quickly in his right eye. Shaochen's aura soared infinitely. Thunderclouds descended in the sky, looking like one could touch them just by stretching out one's hand. Whoosh! The instant the 2 petals merged, a bolt of electric light appeared 1 kilometer away and exploded space. Horrifying thunder resounded everywhere. If not for Shaochen suppressing its might, these 2-layered lightning tribulations would have been sufficient to instantly kill an 8th heaven martial emperor, Emperor Wu. Even the Holy Lord would have been severely injured by the explosion, losing his combat prowess. However, it would be hard to say for a prime. It would be hard to deal a fatal blow. Only 3-layered lightning tribulations can seriously injure a prime. Otherwise, a prime would be able to recover from regular injuries in an instant. Shaochen muttered to himself as he analyzed. Unfortunately, Shaochen did not comprehend the Thunder Great Tao back then but the Saber Tao. If he comprehended the Thunder Great Tao with the support of Great Tao energy, the might of the Divine Lightning Eye's 2nd layer would be sufficient to threaten a prime. There was no perfect solution. If Shaochen had not comprehended the complete Saber Tao, the might of the flawless saber technique would not have been as strong as it was now. Executing the Divine Lightning Eye's 2nd layer is already incredibly easy. Give me another month, and I should be able to execute the Divine Lightning Eye's 3rd layer. Shaochen closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged to cultivate again. The cultivation of the Divine Lightning Eye was not particularly difficult. After all, this was a supreme magic skill that the Thunder Immortal Ancestor directly imparted to Shaochen. Furthermore, Shaochen had the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Lightning, a powerful killing tool. All he needed to do was comprehend it properly and advance step by step. Time passed peacefully for 1 month. On this day, as Shaochen prepared to make another breakthrough to the Divine Lightning Eye's 3rd layer, at the foot of the mountain, a beautiful figure floated over to this place. Shaochen revealed a smile on his face as he set aside his plans. Then, he leaped up and landed before the person. "Emochin, you are here?" The person who came was Emochin. Normally, she would not disturb Shaochen. Since she was here, she definitely had something to tell Shaochen. In 3 months, not only had Shaochen completely recovered from his injuries, but his complexion was even better than before. Vaguely, Shaochen already had an invisible aura that rivaled that of the Holy Lord. He was in high spirits and looked very handsome. Emochin was entranced by this sight. After she startled to her senses, her pretty face blushed slightly. She smiled and said, "The Dragon's Gate's reconstruction is more or less complete. 3 days from now, we will invite the various holy lands and noble clans of the heavenly starry ocean to a banquet. At that time, Big Brother Shao will have to appear. I came to inform you to make preparations." When Shaochen heard this, he said softly, "So, it has already been 3 months. It's fine. I will be there on time 3 days from now. In that case, I will take my leave first. I will not disturb Big Brother Zhao's closed-door cultivation." Chapter 1476. Seeing that Emochin was about to leave, Shaochen said, "There is no need to be so distant. After 3 months of closed-door cultivation, I also want to go somewhere. Accompany me." When Emochin heard that, she felt somewhat surprised. There are still 3 more days to the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment banquet. Where is Big Brother Shao going? Where to? Starfire City, Bloody Cemetery. There, how unexpected. Big Brother Xiao actually wants to go there. That place is not very auspicious. What, you don't have time? Xiao Chen asked upon seeing Emo Chen's hesitation. No, I have time. Are we leaving now? Emo Chen said with a smile, startled to her senses. Even if she did not have time, she had to squeeze some time out. Yes. With a wave of Xiao Chen's hand, 2 mutated flood dragons pulled the cycle war chariot and descended from the sky. Xiao Chen boarded the chariot first, then made an inviting gesture. Emo Chen smiled. She felt somewhat happy at Xiao Chen's actions. After the 2 entered the chariot, it instantly soared into the clouds and arrived at the transportation formation on Heavenly Star Island. This trip to the Kunlun continent would take 3 days. Flying alone would not be enough. Xiao Chen needed to be transported to the Tianwu Domain's central province first. From there, he could rush to Meteor Trail City. That way, 3 days would be sufficient. Big Brother Xiao, why do you want to go to the Bloody Cemetery? That place? Emo Chen asked timidly in the carriage. She had been to that place once. The sky was filled with the blood crows of Xiao Chen's sins. There was also the graveyard, and all of the tombstones had Xiao Chen's name written in blood. From the moment Xiao Chen took off his mask and drew his lunar shadow saber, the knot in his heart was mostly resolved. At this moment, it was enough for him to face it calmly. He said softly, "It's all right. Running away isn't a solution. The past is the past. No matter how much I regret it, it's useless. I just want to take one last look and see if I can eliminate all the sins in the sky." Now that the knot in his heart had been resolved, he had to think of a way to get rid of the sin that filled the sky. Otherwise, if he kept it around, it would be hard to avoid trouble. The origins of his sins were very strange. He had killed countless people, so many that he could not even count them. However, when he thought about it, they were all people who deserved to be killed. They had never killed the innocent, so their sins shouldn't be so great. There was only one explanation, and that was that his sins were left to him by the Qing Emperor. Furthermore, he had a vague feeling that his Emperor's Road 5 years ago was a trap. The appearance of the Scarlet Emperor's Road was not a coincidence. Perhaps there were other mysteries. Of course, all of this was just a guess, and there was no substantial evidence. We're here. Half a day later, Meteor Trail City came into view. The scarlet clouds in the sky were already right before their eyes. Xiao Chen gently waved his sleeves, and the cycle war chariot turned into a throne and entered his white clothes. The 2 of them slowly descended from the sky and stood in the ruins of the city gate. Looking at the ruined Meteor Trail City under the dim light, the 2 of them felt emotional. The scenes from 5 years ago appeared in his mind. Even now, it felt like it was just yesterday. That great battle was truly world-shaking. It was fought until the heavens and earth darkened, and the memory of it was still fresh in his mind. He would probably never forget it in his life. The difficulty of every step on the Emperor's Road was deeply engraved in Xiao Chen's heart. He would never be able to forget it. When Xiao Chen saw the smile on Emo Chen's pretty face vanish, he asked softly with a grave expression, "Are you thinking about the past?" Emo Chen forced a smile and replied, "I'm thinking about many things. I was thinking, if Big Brother Xiao had not jumped off his Emperor's Road because of us, what would the situation be like now?" "Do you believe in karma?" "What do you mean?" "Karma means that there are no coincidences in the world. There is a reason for everything that happens, a purpose for its existence." Seeing that Emo Chen still did not fully understand, Xiao Chen smiled and did not explain further. He simply said, "Actually, in my opinion, the final test of the Emperor's Road is not whether I can clear it or not. It is whether I have the courage to jump off. 5 years later, when I look back, I actually won the gamble." Emo Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, looking like beautiful crescent moons. She smiled and said, "As long as Big Brother Xiao can walk out of the shadow, Emo Chen feels that it is good." Xiao Chen felt a warmth in his heart. He looked to the front and said, "Come in and take a walk with me." "All right." Xiao Chen was very familiar with the graveyard. For the past 5 years, he would come here every year. Every time he came, the pain in his heart intensified. In the end, he no longer had the courage to get off the cycle war chariot and remove his mask. Now that he was revisiting this place, Xiao Chen got off the war chariot, removed his mask, and brought his friends over. The pain was no longer there. It was more of a feeling. What death represented was not destruction but new life. Back then, these people died for him. They did not have any other hope. They only hoped that Xiao Chen could step forward and become the true bearer of luck. Xiao Chen would lead them to resist the deity Dao Union, to resist the demonic calamity that could descend at any moment. Their new lives rested on Xiao Chen. As long as Xiao Chen could walk out, these people would gain new lives. If one could not walk out, then death would be destruction, grief, despair, all pain, and all negative emotions. After comprehending the state of cycle, Xiao Chen's perspective on the problem was no longer the same as before. He could calmly look at all this. All he needed to do was be grateful and continue walking down this path. Remaining in seclusion and holding on to a knot in his heart was the greatest disrespect to these dead people. Strange. After walking around for a long time, Xiao Chen revealed a doubtful expression, feeling very confused. When Emo-chen saw this, she quickly asked, "Big brother Xiao, what's wrong?" In the past, when I came here, there would be a large number of blood crows coming after hearing the news. However, this time, aside from the blood clouds in the sky, I did not see any blood crows. The number of blood crows has decreased significantly. Emo-chen did not understand. What's wrong with that? Something is very wrong. Someone is refining these blood crows, absorbing and digesting the sins in my body. Xiao Chen frowned slightly as he thought of a bad answer. In the past, some deep abyss blood demon cultivators would come here to refine and absorb the blood crows. However, those people did not harm the source of sin. The more blood crows they killed, the more would recover. However, this time, Xiao Chen clearly felt the pressure of sin in the sky weaken. The number of blood crows had decreased. What kind of person was doing this? Xiao Chen closed his eyes and spread out his spiritual sense in the scarlet graveyard. Xiao Chen searched slowly. In the end, aside from some scattered grave sweepers, there were also blood demons here on experiential training. Xiao Chen did not discover anyone worthy of suspicion. Could my senses have been wrong? Xiao Chen was not satisfied. He used his spiritual sense to search several more times but found nothing. Then, he personally walked through the entire graveyard. In the end, he still did not discover anything. However, he ran into a few blood demons and dealt with them in passing. When Xiao Chen looked up, the thick scarlet clouds in the sky seemed to be dimmer than before. However, the difference was not great, making it hard to judge. Big brother Xiao, perhaps that person is in the sky. Emo-chen's words startled him out of his reverie. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up as he said, "That's right. The blood clouds in the sky are filled with heavy sin. If one comes into contact with them, one will be plagued with sin. Most people would not go there, so I automatically ignored it. However, if there really is someone who can refine the sin's origin energy, they will not care about this." With a thought, Xiao Chen gently pushed off the ground with his feet. Then, he shot out like a sharp arrow and instantly entered the blood clouds. However, there were other mysteries in the blood clouds. It was like there was a cotton-like barrier separating them. No matter how hard Xiao Chen tried, he could not break it. Instead, he got plagued by sin, feeling extremely uncomfortable. After a few attempts, Xiao Chen's eyes turned scarlet. Black lines appeared on the surface of his eyeballs. That was a sign that the sin had penetrated deep into his body, already infiltrating his mind. It was extremely dangerous. Xiao Chen did not dare to linger. He quickly left the blood clouds and landed on the ground. Then, he quickly used his great Dao energy to cut off all the sin in his body. "What's wrong?" Emo-chen asked somewhat worriedly when she saw that something was wrong with Xiao Chen. After purging the sin in his body, Xiao Chen revealed a smile. "You're right. There is indeed another path above the blood clouds. To think that even I cannot break it easily." Not being able to break it easily did not mean that it could not be broken. It just required some effort. Xiao Chen was not afraid of trouble. He only feared that he would not be able to find any clues. Now that he had a clue, he was naturally happy. "Move further away." Xiao Chen gestured for Mo Qin to move further away. With a thought, the ring of light that represented great Tao energy appeared behind him. The ring of light condensed into a point and soared into the air. When it reached 10 meters, Xiao Chen shouted, "Tao." Xiao Chen pointed his finger to the sky, and a saber light, supported by great Tao energy, lit up the dark meteor trail city. The saber light turned into a resplendent beam of light, carrying a boundless saber intent. Whoosh! It shot out and instantly tore a hole in the blood clouds. Chapter 1477. Just listen to me, will you? The lunar shadow saber appeared. Xiao Chen grasped its hilt and faced the prime without any fear. Xiao Chen did not draw the lunar shadow saber. If Xiao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber, he would be able to block this palm strike. Then, Xiao Chen soared into the air like a sharp arrow. With a whoosh, he tore through the scarlet clouds. The primordial energy that Xiao Chen expended was not worth it. Why is this fellow still here? He's like a lingering ghost. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Zhuang Jinghe turned his head and formed hand seals. A swastika Buddhist seal burst out from his palm and blocked Xiao Chen's saber strike. Tao! The saber strike tore through the air, and the light of destruction flickered as it suddenly appeared behind Zhuang Jinghe. This was a martial technique for killing enemies. However, Zhuang Jinghe had to use it to rush. It was somewhat of a waste. Xiao Chen's figure moved like a phantom of flowing light, moving far away amid the Bodhi flowers filling the sky. Interesting. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor knew that he could not detain the current Xiao Chen, so he was not willing to fight with Xiao Chen, wasting his efforts. The Kittigarbha Bodhisattva? Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "That's impossible. If you hand over Zhuang Jinghe, I'll leave. Otherwise, you can forget about stopping me." Just as Xiao Chen was thinking, Zhuang Jinghe suddenly laughed maniacally, appearing incredibly savage. Zhuang Jinghe should not have come in person. Otherwise, he would not have fled so quickly at the slightest sign of trouble. "Ha! Little fool, Xiao Chen, you are really naive. Do you think that you can defeat me? Look at where you are now. I'll count to 3, and you are still not leaving. It will be hard for you to leave now." "Ha! That's the count to 3. Xiao Chen, you can die now." The Dongyue Ghost Emperor laughed loudly, and the Yellow Spring's mysterious phenomenon vanished. Then he left. Xiao Chen revealed an expression of joy as he turned around. Bush, bush, bush. A strong wind blew, and Xiao Chen retreated 5 kilometers. The Tao might behind him did not scatter as he stood firmly. "Pumph! What Zhuang Jinghe? I have never seen him before, nor do I know him. I don't mind teaching you a lesson." The Dongyue Ghost Emperor laughed coldly. An eerie wind blew, and wisps of spirits floated out from his body. When the cultivators who came to sweep the graves in the graveyard saw the mysterious phenomenon before them, they could not understand what was happening. Looking up, the boundless starry sky was dotted with thousands of stars, like a chessboard, giving one the illusion that they were in the universe. Zhuang Jinghe was clearly in the ghost domain. How could he be willing to leave just like that? Xiao Chen flew forward and caught the divine weapon that bounced back. He said indifferently, "Not bad. You changed your appearance and your strength improved significantly. It wouldn't be that easy to leave." The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up into a smile. His interest grew. With a wave of his hand, the 7 deadly sins floated out. The moment the blood clouds parted, a wisp of golden Buddhist light fell from the entrance of the cave. It was bright and dazzling, and it was especially eye-catching in this dark space. When Xiao Chen looked again, Zhuang Jinghe was long gone. Given his movement technique, he would definitely not be able to catch up. The newcomer retreated 1 kilometer and hovered in the air, merging with the sky. Soon, the spirits and malicious spirits materialized the vast mysterious phenomenon of hell. "What is that?" The bloody monk, Zhuang Jinghe, wiped off the blood from his lips. He said with some hatred, "How can it compare to you, Blue Dragon King, Xiao Chen? After 5 years of silence, 5 years of silence, you shocked the entire Kunlun realm with a single brilliant feat." This greatly startled Xiao Chen. The Buddha statue looked like the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva that he had seen before. The image of the Buddha statue sat within, slowly fading away. The flood-like source of sin slowly scattered from the body of the image. Ghost domain. Is that so? However, my saber has not truly been drawn yet. How can you be so proud and aloof? Under Prime, you are the first person capable of receiving 30% of my palm strike's force, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor said indifferently. The East Mountain Ghost Monarch asked indifferently. As he looked at Xiao Qin, there was an unconcealable fluctuation hidden in his calm gaze. When the person in front turned his head to look, he was startled. Then he fled in a fluster. Feeling nervous, he slowed down. This formed a boundless pressure of the great Tao, strong and tyrannical. This was the aura of a prime. Xiao Qin did not care about the mocking tone in the Dongyue Ghost Emperor's words. He asked coldly, "Where is the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva? Tell me what you are plotting, and I'll leave you with an intact corpse." In the end, this fellow truly rose up. Now, Xiao Qin no longer had absolute confidence of keeping the other party here. He raised his head and looked into the distance. There was a black dot at the limits of his vision, quickly moving away. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky and threw a palm strike at Xiao Qin. This palm strike was gentle and soft, but it contained startling might. The instant the palm wind landed, the entire sky seemed to descend along with the person. Xiao Qin's heart skipped a beat. Big brother Ying is here. Ying Zongtian, at least you know what's good for you. The saber light and palm wind clashed, and the world turned dark. Then, it shattered into pieces, the entire sky shattering. Big brother. Ding. Furthermore, there was still the Dongyue Ghost Emperor blocking the way. There was no way to give chase. Xiao Qin retorted coldly, not bothering to hide his expression. Xiao Qin narrowed his eyes and executed the fish dragon art. Then he moved around like a dragon. Then he shook off all the sins that came over and gave chase. A light flashed, and the 7 divine weapons merged into one. Then, Xiao Qin stepped on the 7 deadly sins. Xiao Qin executed the first move of the flawless saber technique, the void-breaking stance. Wait here for me for a while. This fellow is so confident. What trump cards does he have? Xiao Qin narrowed his eyes as he looked at this person. This person was one of the deity Tao Union's 3 primes, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor. Xiao Qin could not help shouting, "Zhuangzhenghe, it turns out that you are not dead yet." At Ying Zongtian's request, Xiao Qin helplessly gave up and withdrew his great Tao might. In that instant, Xiao Qin's vision widened. The Buddhist light descended for a moment before vanishing. Clearly, it was the person refining this sin's origin energy. Knowing that he had been exposed and that something was wrong, he quickly withdrew his technique and left. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Qin executed the void-breaking stance again. However, this time, he did not use the saber but space. Bang! Just at this moment, a figure flew over from behind. He was like a Haotian sun, illuminating the surroundings and sending out a bright light. Back then, Xiao Qin had destroyed the other party's lair in the sea region adjacent to Heavenly Star Island, leaving only a head behind. Unexpectedly, this person came out again and stirred up trouble. However, Xiao Qin had no choice now. He used his body to control the saber, using the saber to control space, tearing through space. With Xiao Qin's wasteful consumption, his speed immediately increased explosively. Everywhere he passed, tears appeared in space. Strange, I clearly have no impression of this person's appearance. Why does the air he exudes seem so familiar? Light flickered in Xiao Qin's palm, and the images of many sabers spun around and merged into the saber. After 1 hour, not only did Zhuangzhenghe not close the distance, but it even widened. Zhuangzhenghe felt very confident, showing no fear as he showed a mocking expression. Dongyue Ghost Emperor. However, this person before Zhuangzhenghe seemed to be a surprise. Unexpectedly, he was incredibly fast. A Buddhist light flickered under Zhuangzhenghe's feet, and Bodhi lights surrounded him. Flowers bloomed and withered. Upon hearing Xiao Qin's shout, the owner of that body clearly paused, significantly startled. That was right. This person was Ying Zongtian. He had sensed an intense fluctuation in the Haotian sect. When he discovered that it was Xiao Chen, he immediately gave chase. The instant the other party turned his head, Xiao Chen clearly saw his appearance, and he immediately felt suspicious. This startled Xiao Chen, but he did not fluster in the face of danger. At the critical moment, Xiao Chen shouted, and great Tao energy filled his entire body as he swung his saber. With Xiao Chen's speed, as long as a prime did not make a move, no one could escape from him. However, I have something very important that requires me to go to the ghost domain. Whoosh! After giving chase for a while, inspiration flashed in Xiao Chen's mind. Suddenly, he recalled why this aura felt so familiar. Ha! How arrogant! Don't be unable to differentiate good from bad. Leave immediately, and I'll pretend that I did not see you. It looked like a startling battle was about to start. Xiao Chen looked around and realized that he had chased Zhuang Jinghe all the way from the Tianwu domain to the ghost domain. Chapter 1478. Big Brother Ying, why did you let him go? With our combined strength, we can definitely make him retreat. Xiao Chen said reluctantly. Since Zhuang Jinghe fled to the ghost domain, he definitely had something to do with the Dongyue Ghost Emperor. Xiao Chen was unwilling to give up such a good lead. Ying Zongtian smiled and said, "It's not that simple. The strength of a prime is more powerful than you imagine. If you really fought, you would be the one at a disadvantage. Furthermore, he has the geographical advantage in the ghost domain, and the ghost race experts can help him at any time. Even with me, if we were to fight, it would only be a situation where both sides would suffer." After listening to Ying Zongtian's explanation, Xiao Chen slowly calmed down and analyzed the situation. That was indeed the case. Naturally, Xiao Chen understood this logic. However, he was too anxious and lost his rationality. There was still a huge gap between him and a prime. At best, he could retreat unscathed. However, this was already very impressive. For many years, no one had been able to challenge the authority of a prime. Before a prime, the Ninth Heaven Emperor Wu was just an ordinary existence. To be able to catch the Dongyue Ghost Emperor's palm strike calmly and confront him, Xiao Chen's improvement was already very obvious. Many thanks, Big Brother. I was indeed too anxious earlier, but Xiao Chen had never been one to waste time on an insignificant problem. After thinking it through, he immediately thanked Xiao Chen. Ying Zongtian smiled amiably. Even if I didn't come, nothing would have happened to you. However, what's wrong? It must be something extraordinary for you to be so anxious. Xiao Chen nodded and explained his encounter in the bloody cemetery, as well as the ins and outs of the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva. That's true. In that case, I really took the risk earlier. After hearing that, Ying Zongtian regretted letting the Dongyue Ghost Emperor go for nothing. Now that he thought about it, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor clearly had other reasons for retreating so easily despite having the geographical advantage. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, was a little more open-minded. He smiled and said, "It's better to give this matter further thought. Since I'm here, Big Brother Ying, please invite me to the Haotian sect." Ying Zongtian was rather carefree. The smile on his face did not fade. He nodded and said, "Let's go and have a drink or two. You can explain to me about Tao. Don't hold back. Of course, I'll tell you everything I know. But I have to go to the bloody cemetery first. I have a friend waiting for me there." "All right, let's go." The two of them leapt into the air and swiftly left the ghost domain. On the other side, after the Dongyue Ghost Emperor left, he met up with Zhuang Jinghe with a gloomy expression. "I've told you many times not to contact me. It's not time to expose our relationship yet," scolded the Dongyue Ghost Emperor coldly. Zhuang Jinghe appeared somewhat startled, not daring to retort. He whispered, "I did not expect this brat to grow so fast. I thought that you would be able to deal with him easily with your means." "Nonsense. If I could deal with him easily, why would I allow him to live until now? Let me tell you, even Emperor Forsaken would have to put in a lot of effort to kill him now." The earlier palm strike had failed to truly push back Xiao Chen. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor felt somewhat frustrated, and he was not in a good mood. If not for the need to maintain some connection to the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor would not have been so magnanimous to Xiao Chen without this worry. How can he be so strong? In that case, why did you not kill him? Aren't you just nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity? Zhuang Jinghe asked with lingering fear. It turned out that he had nearly died at the other party's hands. Fortunately, Zhuang Jinghe had not been careless and fled when the situation turned bad. Otherwise, he might have ended up as a pile of bones. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor glanced at Zhuang Jinghe and said indifferently, "You do not need to know about this. Bring me to see the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva." Before a prime, Zhuang Jinghe did not show any temper. He was docile and knew how to adapt to circumstances. After listening to the prime's instructions, Zhuang Jinghe quickly led the Dongyue Ghost Emperor to the Yellow Springs of Hell. Right now, Hell had already become a forbidden land, not open to the public. Furthermore, after the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's head merged with his body, his control over Hell became very strong. If he was not willing, even a prime would find it hard to see him. With Zhuang Jinghe leading the way, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor arrived at the gates of Hell without any obstructions. After the gates of Hell was the Yellow Springs. He recalled that the 6 paths of reincarnation were here as well. "Wait here," the Dongyue Ghost Emperor said. After the East Mountain Ghost Monarch said that, he walked in alone. After crossing the gates of Hell, it was the Yellow Springs Road. Even a prime could only see black and white in this world. Aside from that saber light that someone left behind many years ago, no one else could bring color to this place. However, the situation now seemed somewhat different. At the end of the Yellow Springs Road, extremely far away, one could vaguely see a 7-colored Buddhist light. It was like the waves of the sea rising and falling, appearing indistinct. When one listened carefully, one could hear many Buddhist incantations echoing in one's ears. The incantation that was buzzing like a mosquito was not being chanted by one person, but by the overlapping voices of many people. The Buddhist incantations overlapped, and the Buddhist might was heavy, calming one's heart and making one sigh at the might of Buddhist might. On the Yellow Springs Road, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor moved quickly. Soon, he arrived at the abyss-like underworld river. On the other side of the river was the boundless sea of bitterness. The sea of bitterness was filled with endless aggrieved spirits. A large Buddha floated on the sea. The aggrieved spirits and malicious spirits were like ants struggling in the sea of bitterness. There were 800 arhats around the large Buddha, chanting with their eyes closed. The overlapping Buddhist incantations came from these people. Occasionally, a large number of aggrieved spirits and malicious spirits were purified. They flew into the large Buddha's body like thousands of fireflies. Naturally, the large Buddha was the mysterious and unfathomable Kittagarbha Bodhisattva. He opened his eyes and withdrew his dharmic incarnation. Then he leaped over the underworld river and arrived before the Dongyue Ghost Emperor. "That disciple of yours seems to be rather unlucky. Not long after he helped you refine the sin, Xiao Chen discovered him," the Dongyue Ghost Emperor said with some dissatisfaction. "He even exposed my relationship with you." The Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's mortal body was that of an old man wearing a kasaya and holding a staff. He had a long beard and eyebrows, looking like an esteemed Buddhist monk from head to toe. It has not reached that stage yet. He does not know my background, much less my current strength. Even if he discovered some clues, he could not do anything about it. You are not here to seek me out over such a small matter, right? The Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's deep eyes revealed boundless wisdom and an unfathomable Buddhist light. That's right. Emperor Forsaken predicted that Xiao Chen would go to the Blue Dragon Palace soon. How much do you know about the Blue Dragon Palace? Tell me. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor did not believe in Buddhism. Buddhism did not exist in the Kunlun realm either. Hence, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor was not interested in the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's identity and did not show much respect for him. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor only treated the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva as an expert, a peak expert who was strong enough to work with him. In the Dongyue Ghost Emperor's eyes, strength reigned supreme. All faith, including the deity race, was meaningless. I have never heard of the Blue Dragon Palace. However, in my era, the Blue Dragon already existed. It was one of the 7-colored divine dragons. It had a noble bloodline and was second only to the 3 ancestor dragons in the dragon race. Upon hearing this, greed flashed in the Dongyue Ghost Emperor's eyes. He looked at the Kitigarbha Bodhisattva and said, "I need you to help me." In the end, Emperor Forsaken is too selfish. I don't believe that he will give up a lot of benefits. I still have to rely on myself. The Kitigarbha Bodhisattva thought for a long time before saying, "Sure. However, you have to think of a way to help me refine the sins in the bloody graveyard." That is difficult. Shaoqin is on guard. Furthermore, that place is Ying Zongtian's territory. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor muttered to himself with a frown, weighing the pros and cons. Think about it yourself. This bodhisattva still needs to purify the thousands of aggrieved souls in this hell. I swear not to become a Buddha until hell is empty. The Kitigarbha Bodhisattva chanted his Buddhist name, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Then, he reverted to his dharmic incarnation and continued purifying the aggrieved souls and malicious spirits in the boundless sea of bitterness. When the Dongyue Ghost Emperor saw this scene, he thought to himself, "This old bald donkey is no easier to deal with than Emperor Forsaken." None of them were easy to deal with. The Dongyue Ghost Emperor flung his sleeves and pondered how to satisfy the other party's conditions. Then he left this place. The boundless sea of bitterness in the Yellow Springs hell still existed. Only the saber light that the Qing Emperor left behind no longer existed. Chapter 1479. Tianwu Domain, Haotian Sect. Shaoqin, Emoqin, and Ying Zongtian casually sat down in a pavilion on a mountain peak and analyzed the matter of the Kitigarbha Bodhisattva. I know about this Kitigarbha Bodhisattva. Long ago, there was a legend that there was a great Buddha hidden in the depths of hell with extremely horrifying strength. However, he never left hell and never interfered with the matters of the outside world. Hence, few people know about him. Ying Zongtian put down his teacup and continued, "Furthermore, the Qing Emperor already killed him 10,000 years ago. Hence, no one paid any attention to the matter of this great Buddha." Emoqin read many ancient texts on Buddhism. Then, she continued, during the immortal epoch, Buddhism flourished, not much weaker than the immortal court. In the cultivation of Buddhism, Bodhisattva was an existence only inferior to Buddha. They were only one step away from becoming a Buddha. Feeling interested, Shaoqin asked, "Which step?" "Grand vows. For a Bodhisattva to become a Buddha, one has to cultivate the Mahayana Buddhist scriptures and make a grand vows. After completing them, one can prove one's Tao and become a Buddha." When Shaoqin heard this, he felt stunned. He asked in confusion, "That's simple?" In that case, if a Bodhisattva purposely made the grand vows very simple, wouldn't one be able to become a Buddha easily? Emoqin smiled faintly and said, "You could say that. However, no one would do that." The difficulty and simplicity of the grand vows directly determined how strong one would be after becoming a Buddha. Ordinary grand vows are called minor grand vows. The more difficult ones are called major grand vows. The Bodhisattva would choose the difficulty of the grand vows and the number of grand vows based on their own wisdom. Most Bodhisattvas would choose minor grand vows. Those with some wisdom would challenge major grand vows. The most famous would be the 48 major grand vows that Amitabha Buddha made. He was undoubtedly the strongest person in ancient Buddhism. Clearly, this was Ying Zongtian's first time hearing such an explanation. He asked interestedly, "What does this have to do with the Kitigarbha Bodhisattva?" Emoqin smiled and replied seriously, "It has a lot to do with it. The Buddhists explain the grand vows as grand vows as grand vows. After understanding one's nature, they show compassion for all living beings. Then, they use a sincere and unwavering heart to make a wish to save all living beings. However, this is a Buddhist explanation. From an outsider's point of view, how could it be so mystical? The so-called grand wish should be some kind of wish power cultivation. The greater the wish, the greater the gift from the heaven and earth, and the stronger one's strength will be. If one's root of wisdom isn't strong enough, they won't be able to fulfill their great ambitions. They will be stuck at a bottleneck in cultivation. Upon hearing this, Ing Zongtian laughed and said, "If your explanation was in a place where Buddhism thrives, they would definitely treat you as a heretic. However, I feel that it makes sense. It's just like the power of faith of the gods, except that the power of faith of the Buddhists is more mysterious." Emochan smiled and nodded. According to the ancient records, this Kittagarbha Bodhisattva had a root of wisdom. As a bodhisattva, he could surpass many Buddhas. Originally, when he was preparing to become a Buddha, a great tribulation of the world happened. The immortal epoch was destroyed, and the Buddhist world was implicated. Countless Buddhas fell as a result. When he saw the ancient order of Buddhism, he immediately changed his great ambition. He swore that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty. "If hell is not empty, I swear not to become a Buddha." As Shaochen mulled over these words, he entered deep thought. He seemed to have figured something out. The greatness of this great ambition is comparable to the 48 great ambitions of the Amitabha Buddha back then. Once he succeeds, his strength will be immeasurable. He might even become the Lord Buddha of the New World. Emochan continued her analysis, voicing her opinion. Given this, it looked like the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva was very ambitious. What he wanted was to become the Lord of the Buddha world, a true great world, outside of the abandoned world. When the ancient Buddhist world was destroyed, the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva entered hell and made such a great ambition. He was really decisive. Emochan continued, "Now that I understand all this, it is not hard to understand why the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva is after the sins of Big Brother Shao. It might be because of the words hell is not empty." Inspiration flashed in Shaochen's mind. He revealed an expression of understanding. Emochen's rigorous speculation cleared up some of his original doubts. He was suddenly enlightened and had figured everything out. Shaochen said sullenly, "I've figured it out. The sins on me were left by the Qing Emperor. Back then, the Qing Emperor also had a cultivation technique for absorbing sins. He must have gone to hell to collect the sins that originally existed. Naturally, the place with the most sins was hell. For the sake of cultivating the good and evil beneficence art, the Qing Emperor must have gone to hell. Given this, it looked like the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva and the Qing Emperor had a grudge long ago. The Qing Emperor was also very familiar with hell. Back then, the Qing Emperor took away a large number of sins from hell. However, the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's great ambition was to not become a Buddha until hell was empty. The Kittagarbha Bodhisattva had to purify all the sins in hell before he could become a Buddha. However, a large portion of the sins in hell were on the Qing Emperor. Even if he was done, he would not be able to become a Buddha. He would have to cleanse the sins of the Qing Emperor as well. Back then, the Bloody Emperor's road might have been Shaochen's doing, wanting to force out all of Shaochen's sins. After hearing Shaochen's words, Emochan smiled faintly and did not say anything else. On the other hand, Ing Zongtian's horizons were greatly broadened and he gasped in amazement. He looked at Emochan and couldn't help but praise, "I've long heard that Miss Emo is extraordinarily intelligent. You're proficient in the four arts, medicine, divination, astrology, and so on. Today, I've finally seen it for myself." Without a vast amount of knowledge, no one else would be able to understand the cause and effect of the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva's matter so clearly. Ing Zongtian's words were sincere admiration, and he did not mean to be polite. "Thank you for your praise, senior." Emochan was very happy to receive the praise of a prime. She smiled faintly to express her thanks. However, what made her even happier was solving this mystery for Shaochen. Shaochen said sullenly, "We absolutely cannot let him become a Buddha. Otherwise, given his character, neither of us will have a good ending." Shaochen did not want to care about the matters of the Buddhist realm. However, the existence of the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva already threatened his existence, so he had to do something about it. Ing Zongtian sighed softly. Right now, the Kunlun realm is in a precarious situation. There is a demonic calamity ahead, which could descend at any moment. Then, there is an ambitious and ruthless person like Emperor Forsaken. Now, there is the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva, who is eyeing us covetously. After the old Thunder King left, the world will truly fall into chaos. The Kunlun realm's calamity is truly unavoidable. Xiao Chen's heart sank. Big Brother Ing, is the demonic calamity really that severe? Ing Zongtian's expression turned grave. He smiled bitterly and helplessly. It is very severe. Just the 18 demon monarchs are already too much to bear. The even stronger dark church has yet to appear. It is hard to be optimistic even if we want to. Even if we gather all the power of the Kunlun realm, our chances of victory are very slim. Furthermore, we are like a pile of loose sand now. The situation was very pessimistic. No wonder the Myriad Law Fiend Master was so grave 3 months ago. Is there no way to resolve this? She asked worriedly. The teacup fell heavily to the ground. Ing Zongtian glanced at Xiao Chen and said, "Of course, there is. As long as someone is as strong as the Thunder King or surpasses the Thunder King, they can rule the Kunlun realm. Then, they can be like the Qing Emperor back then, turning the tide and fighting against the 18 demon monarchs alone. Little brother Xiao, I have confidence in you. You have never disappointed me before. This is the last time, and you will definitely not disappoint me." Xiao Chen revealed a rare seriousness on his face. He put down the teacup by his lips and said, "Without Big Brother Ing taking care of me in secret, I would have died many times already. Although I am not as sentimental as Big Brother Ing, I am someone who knows how to be grateful. I will definitely do my best to protect the Kunlun realm." A heroic spirit appeared in Ing Zongtian's heart. He smiled and said, "You are still the same as before, not exaggerating. That's right. We cultivators only seek peace of mind. Even if we fight to the death, we will do our best. 2 days from now, I will give you a generous gift at the Dragon's Gates banquet." "You are most welcome." Xiao Chen did not overthink. Naturally, it would be for the best if Big Brother Ing could come. Following that, Ing Zongtian started asking questions of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen spoke without holding back, giving Ing Zongtian some inspiration. Before leaving, Xiao Chen instructed Ing Zongtian to help guard the sin in the Scarlet Graveyard. When he was strong enough, he would come and destroy it. Ing Zongtian knew that this matter was very important. He knew that he was duty-bound, so he did not hesitate to agree. Chapter 1480. After saying goodbye to Ing Zongtian, Xiao Chen brought Emo Qin to the Scarlet Graveyard once more. As Xiao Chen looked at the sky and the dense scarlet clouds that remained all year round, he frowned slightly, not knowing what to do. Sin was hard to get rid of. Aside from purifying it, it would be hard to find any other means to cleanse it. Unfortunately, the cultivators in the Kunlun realm who had fortuitous encounters and learned how to purify them would find it hard to purify such vast sin. The truly capable one was the Buddhist sect's Kittagarbha Bodhisattva. The Buddhists specialized in this in the first place. Furthermore, the Kittagarbha Bodhisattva was a peak-esteemed monk from the ancient Buddhist sections. This was really problematic. At his wits' end, Xiao Chen could not think of a good solution. Even the prime Ing Zongtian could not do anything about it. What could Xiao Chen do? "Emo Qin, do you know how to get rid of this sin?" Xiao Chen asked softly as he looked at the scarlet clouds. Emo Qin shook her head. Even with her vast knowledge, she did not know how to get rid of this vast sin. However, she made a mental note to go back and search for ancient texts on sin to help Big Brother Xiao resolve this problem. Xiao Chen had only asked casually. When he saw the situation, he said softly, "Let's go back." 2 days later, the Dragon's Gates banquet was held as scheduled. The venue was the plaza where the Dragon's Gates re-establishment ceremony was held. The guests were the same as before, and none of the Dragon's Gate elders were missing. The story was still the same. However, the Blue Dragon King was no longer the same as before. Hence, this world was no longer the same. Xiao Chen still remembered the day of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment. The various holy lands, both overtly and covertly, came to disrupt and obstruct the ceremony. On that day, the white-clad Blue Dragon King faced the mockery of 10-odd Holy Land's first elders alone, nearly shutting down the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. However, today the same scene and nearly the same people appeared. However, during the Dragon's Gate's banquet, these people greeted Xiao Chen with smiles and congratulated him. the situation was completely reversed. Xiao Chun was rather open-minded and did not mind too much. More or less, these sects had helped him during his great tribulation of wind and fire. There was no need to take the dispute seriously. After all, there was no feud. After noon that day, Xiao Chun began to prepare for a lecture on the Tao. He was going to tell them everything he knew about the Tao. The Holy Lord, the clan leaders of the ancient clans, and many other people of virtue and prestige had all come for the same reason. Seeing that they were finally getting to the main topic, they all revealed joyful expressions and listened with anticipation. Xiao Chun sat in the middle of the great hall. Mo Chen, Yu Bingyun, and the many Dragon's Gate doyens accompanied him. The chairs on the left and right sides of the room were occupied by important figures. There was the Heavenly Province Academy's Holy Lord, the Yin-Yang Utopia's Grotto Mistress, and many other patriarchs. Nearly all the major characters of the Heavenly Starry Ocean who could hold their own were here. After Xiao Chun calmed his emotions for a while, he prepared to speak. I am just a beginner in the Great Tao energy and do not know much. I will only speak about what I know and what I comprehended. I hope that everyone will not be disappointed. The Blue Dragon King is too humble. You are the first cultivator to gain the Tao in the post-ancient era. You proved that the Great Tao energy is not something of legend. That is already enough for you to be proud of. There is no need to be humble. The Heavenly Province Academy's Holy Lord smiled faintly as he spoke the truth, half flattering Xiao Chun. Actually, this was the truth. Xiao Chun was indeed just a beginner. However, compared to these holy lords, he was much stronger. Xiao Chun did not bother with pleasantries. Then, he started to speak about the Tao. However, just as he was about to speak, 3 figures suddenly appeared in the sky. Then they charged forward. Their strong auras and tyrannical auras overturned everything in their way. Bush, bush, bush. Earlier, they were at the horizon. In the blink of an eye, 3 figures arrived uninvited and entered the Great Hall. The newcomers were the 3 giants of the deity Tao Union, Emperor Forsaken, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, and the Heaven Punishing Prime. Xiao Chen's heart sank. He felt slightly angry, but his expression did not change. However, the expressions of the many honored guests changed drastically. These 3 giants were all primes. This was especially so for Emperor Forsaken. He was now publicly acknowledged as the strongest person in the Kunlun realm. Senior deity sovereign. The honored guests seated in the chairs all stood up and greeted the deity sovereign. At this moment, the respect for the strong was also fear for Emperor Forsaken. The atmosphere immediately turned strange. Who could have imagined that the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment banquet would attract all 3 of the deity Tao Union's primes? Emperor Forsaken exuded a strong presence. He had a faint smile on his face as he looked at Xiao Chun and said, I came uninvited. Little brother Xiao Chun, I hope you don't mind. Xiao Chun retorted indifferently, what if I mind? This place does not welcome anyone from the deity Tao Union. Some people could be forgiven, but others could never be forgiven. The 3 before Xiao Chun were the latter. Xiao Chun drew a clear line in his heart, not willing to hide the disgust in his heart. The moment he spoke, the atmosphere turned tense. Emperor Forsaken smiled faintly and said, Little brother Xiao Chun, why get angry? Isn't it a sermon? Can't we add 3 more chairs? The heaven-punishing corpse god said coldly, Brat, don't be ignorant. Do you really think that you are a major character on equal footing with us? It is your honor that the deity sovereign is giving you face. Xiao Chun smiled and said, That is the honor of those dogs by his side, not me, Xiao Chen. The heaven-punishing corpse god's face darkened. You dare to scold me? A berserk aura burst out of the heaven-punishing corpse god's body. The entire hall started shaking. An oppressive aura was unleashed, causing the guests to be startled. Everyone felt fear in their hearts. This was the rage of a prime. No one dared to endure it. That's right. I am indeed scolding you. Xiao Chun smiled faintly, appearing calm and at ease. He only casually took a step forward and endured the other party's aura, not letting the Dragon's Gate's people endure it. Calm and unruffled, angry but not flustered. This was the current Xiao Chun. The smile on Emperor Forsaken's face did not fade. He stretched out his hand to block the heaven-punishing corpse god, who was preparing to attack. He said, "Little brother Xiaochen, since you are not going to welcome us, let's just leave. However, before we leave, there is a debt that we need to settle." The smile on Emperor Forsaken's face disappeared. He was finally going to state the purpose of this trip. "There are countless debts between us. If you really want to settle them, can you finish them?" Xiaochen revealed a cold smile. Although he was no match for a prime now, there was no need to be too afraid. At the very most, he would just burn indiscriminately. No one would benefit from that. There was no need to be polite to the other party. Furthermore, the other party personally coming to the Dragon's Gates banquet was already the greatest impoliteness to Xiaochen. Emperor Forsaken ignored the heaven-punishing corpse god. He continued, "The Blue Dragon King has always been a bold person. Could it be that you do not want to admit it? Let me ask you this. Do you acknowledge the identity of the shadowless Saber Sovereign?" Xiaochen's heart sank. He did not know what the other party was thinking, so he remained silent. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it that you admit it. Back then, you used the identity of the shadowless Saber Sovereign to severely injure the Divine Sun. It is time to settle this debt properly today." When Xiaochen heard that, he smiled coldly in his heart. "That's right. The shadowless Saber Sovereign is indeed me. I was also the one who injured Diwuk. However, that is because he is not as skilled. However, if you want to cause trouble, you will have an excuse. Let me ask you this. Emperor Forsaken, what exactly do you want? If you have something to say, just say it. There is no need to beat around the bush and make things so complicated." The other party was here to cause trouble in the first place. He would not give up until he achieved his goal. The so-called settling debts was just an excuse. Emperor Forsaken said sullenly, "This emperor is not as unbearable as you think. Back then, you chopped down the Divine Sun. Today, you have to receive 3 palm strikes from me. Then this debt will be written off." The moment Emperor Forsaken said that, the crowd burst into an uproar. Was Emperor Forsaken not being too much of a bully? After all, he was the strongest person of the Kunlun realm, someone who had been famous for a long time. Yet, he wanted a junior to receive 3 palm strikes from him. Divine Sovereign, isn't this a little overboard? The grudges of youngsters. Since the Divine Sun is safe and sound, let's just forget about it. The Heavenly Province Academy's Holy Lord could not stand by and watch, so he advised. "Interesting. I can explain the Tao to you all, but you cannot receive 3 palm strikes from the Divine Sovereign? Since you are advising, how about you receive 3 palm strikes from the Divine Sovereign?" The Dongyue Ghost Emperor, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke, immediately stopping the Heavenly Province Academy's Holy Lord from speaking. The remaining people feared the other party's strength. Even though they wanted to advise, they did not dare to say anything. The tyrannical 3 giants of the deity Tao Union ruined the atmosphere of a proper banquet. Everyone felt angry but did not dare to say anything. Chapter 1481. Receive 3 moves from you? Why should I receive 3 moves from you? Xiaochen did not fall for it, remaining extremely calm. Did Xiaochen really think that Xiaochen was a hothead, thinking that he was unrivaled just because he was strong? Xiaochen was very clear on the distance between him and Emperor Forsaken. The other party was the strongest prime and also the strongest person in the Kunlun realm, an unrivaled existence in the Kunlun realm. Emperor Forsaken, how about I receive 3 moves from you? Outside the hall, Zongtian arrived late with his first senior sister. However, he finally dared to arrive at this crucial moment. Another supreme martial artist had arrived. Zongtian smiled at Xiaochen and walked in with his back to the sunlight. Emperor Forsaken did not feel surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "You came at the right time. However, Zongtian, he has to receive these 3 palm strikes." "But, Emperor Forsaken, can you not be so tyrannical?" Someone among the Dragon's Gate elders said in dissatisfaction. Suddenly, Emperor Forsaken guffawed endlessly. Then, he said indifferently, "It looks like I have been good-tempered for too long." "But, Just because I am the strongest person in the Kunlun realm is enough. Right after Emperor Forsaken spoke, a divine light suddenly burst out of his body. Then he shook the entire hall, instantly raising it to the ground. Pusiat, Pusiat. Half of the cultivators present vomited a mouthful of blood. Before this strong divine light, they vomited blood and were sent flying. After taking a few steps back, they managed to stabilize their footing and stabilize their bodies. Only a small number of people relied on their own strength to move back and did not suffer any injuries. However, they still felt fear in their hearts. After they stabilized themselves, they all moved back, as they felt killing chi from Emperor Forsaken. Shao Chun blocked this divine light with all his might, protecting the Dragon's Gate elders. He felt his chi and blood surge. The Dragon's Gate elders took this opportunity to retreat, not daring to linger. An enraged Emperor Forsaken was truly too frightening. A single beam of divine light had forced back so many people. The smile on Emperor Forsaken's face did not diminish. He said softly, "I really miss the days when I was young. Back then, I didn't have any scruples. I showed off my abilities and killed whenever I wanted. But when you become a supreme being or a deity emperor, you're always overcautious and indecisive. Is that necessary? That old fart, the Thunder King, died long ago on the Kunlun Road. Why should I be so apprehensive? Indeed, 100 years, 200 years, or 1,000 years. Emperor Forsaken hadn't really made a move yet because the existence of the Thunder King had suppressed him for too long. Thinking back to the past, when he was young, he was also full of vigor, having his own golden years. There had been battles where swords and blades dripped with blood, battles where life and death hung in the balance. He didn't get to where he was today by living like a prince. It was because of his unparalleled talent and his decisiveness in killing. Beneath every throne were piles of corpses and boundless blood. Naturally, the deity race's supreme throne was no exception. Why did the Holy Lord present stand up and greet him respectfully the moment they saw him? Of course, it was because of Shao Chen's strength. It was because he had seen how cold-blooded and emotionless this deity emperor was when he was young. It was not just because of the deity emperor's empty title. As Shao Chen spoke, he suddenly threw a palm strike at Shao Chen. Before Shao Chen could prepare, this palm strike struck him, sending him flying into the air and vomiting a large mouthful of blood. Too weak. Shao Chen, you are still not strong enough. I only used 50% of my strength in this palm strike, and you can't even see my shadow. Emperor Forsaken remained standing where he was, a smile on his face. It was like he had never moved at all and had always been there. Shao Chen knelt on one knee and looked at Emperor Forsaken. A trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Shao Chen really could not see Shao Chen at all. He did not even know how he attacked. Furthermore, the force was unbelievably strong. If Shao Chen possessed great Dao energy and negated most of the force, this palm strike would have smashed him to death. The strong are revered in the world. I like to reason with people. However, there are times when I do not like to do so, such as now. An aura that looked down on the world spread out from Emperor Forsaken's body, putting immense pressure on everyone. You have to be clear about who is speaking to you. It is me, Emperor Forsaken. I am not begging you to receive 3 moves from me. This is an order that you cannot defy. A faint sound of wind appeared. Emperor Forsaken's second palm strike arrived. This time, Shao Chen did not relax at all. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he condensed the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram in front of him. The instant the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram formed, it broke before it could fully form. Shao Chen's heart sank. Without much time to think, he executed the fish dragon art. Shao Chen's body was like a fish in water, changing in thousands of ways. He was like a fish in water, nimble and ever-changing, flickering endlessly. In that instant, thousands of afterimages appeared, real and fake, no one could tell them apart. Emperor Forsaken's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "Interesting. You do have some strength. However, that is all." In Shao Chen's eyes, Emperor Forsaken's palm strike suddenly became infinitely large, airtight. There was nowhere for him to escape to. Bang! After being struck again, Xiao Chen's body soared into the air and went flying back. Xiao Chen was a fish. It was like he was in the sea. However, Emperor Forsaken's palm strike directly overturned the entire sea. Emperor Forsaken used absolute strength to knock Xiao Chen, who was more skilled, into the air. Tyrannical. This was true tyranny. Not bad at all. Xiao Chen, you can be proud. I already used 70% of my strength in this palm strike. It has been many years since I used such strength. I am really not used to it. Emperor Forsaken appeared where he was again. As he watched Xiao Chen fly back, he did not continue attacking. Emperor Forsaken, don't go overboard. Unexpectedly, Emperor Forsaken sent out palm strike after palm strike. A murderous intent flashed on Ying Zongtian's face. Just as Xiao Chen was about to step forward, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor and the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God blocked him with cold smiles. Don't block him. Let him come over. Emperor Forsaken casually turned around and looked at Ying Zongtian. What's wrong? Are you sure you want to receive 3 palm strikes from me? Against you, I won't be as lenient as I am now. As a prime, you should be very clear on my strength. If you had another 100 years, perhaps you might be able to fight me to a draw. However, right now, you really cannot receive 3 palm strikes from me at full power. The rash Ying Zongtian calmed down. Emperor Forsaken was right. If the other party used his full power, the first palm strike could defeat Xiao Chen. The second palm strike could severely injure Xiao Chen. As for the third palm strike, Xiao Chen might not be able to receive it. This was not a true duel. Xiao Chen had to receive the other party's moves. The one who passively received the attacks would be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, Emperor Forsaken's strength was already on par with the Thunder King's in the first place, only slightly weaker. Xiao Chen was indeed much stronger than Xiao Chen. He definitely lived up to his reputation as the strongest person of the Kunlun realm. Even so, Xiao Chen had to receive it. This was his responsibility as a big brother. After thinking for a while, Ying Zongtian made his decision. He said calmly, I'm sure there is one more palm strike. I'll receive it. However, before Xiao Chen finished speaking, a resonant voice interrupted him. Xiao Chen, who had been smashed into the rubble, pushed aside everything in his way and vomited a mouthful of blood. Xiao Chen revealed a determined expression as he looked calmly at Emperor Forsaken, showing neither joy nor sorrow. Xiao Chen. Ying Zongtian could not help feeling anxious. How could Xiao Chen endure Emperor Forsaken's third palm strike in his current state? An expression of admiration flashed in Emperor Forsaken's eyes. He smiled and said, You have ambition and a good mental state. For you to be able to defeat Wuk, it is not as simple as luck. With one glance, Emperor Forsaken could tell that Xiao Chen's mental state had already recovered its calm, entering a state of combat. Given Xiao Chen's current state, he might really be able to receive the first palm strike smite. Just at this moment, 3 figures descended from the sky. They were the Bright Moon Empress, the Myriad Law Fiend Master, and the Cyclic Astral Lord, who originally did not intend to show themselves. When the 3 giants of the Deity Dao Union appeared, these 3 primes of the heavenly starry ocean sensed it and had been observing silently. Due to various reasons, they originally did not want to show themselves. Now they had no choice but to do so. Deity Sovereign, there is no need to use the third palm strike. Why the need to compete with a junior? The might of 2 palm strikes is already sufficient to help the Divine Sun vent his anger. The Cyclic Astral Lord lowered his stance and advised. The Bright Moon Empress also said, Big Brother Qitian, it is already like this. Let's just forget about it. It is not easy for you to personally come to the heavenly starry ocean. Come to my lunar palace and sit for a while. The Myriad Law Fiend Master sighed softly and said, Deity Sovereign, when we were young, we had some friendship. Let's just forget about the third palm strike. The 3 primes respected Emperor Forsaken's strength. They advised him gently, giving him a way out of this embarrassing situation, hoping that he would stop here. However, if Xiao Chen really did not give any face, no matter how strong the Deity Sovereign was, the 3 primes would step forward. There was a saying, After all is said and done, it is time to meet swords and sabers. Emperor Forsaken showed an uncertain expression. It was impossible to tell whether he was happy, angry, sad, or joyful. No one knew what he was thinking. Would he use the third palm strike or not? Everyone looked anxiously at Emperor Forsaken, the strongest prime of the Kunlun realm, waiting for his decision. However, the development of the matter seemed somewhat unexpected. It seemed like no one had considered Xiao Chen's thoughts. Chapter 1482. After a moment of silence, Emperor Forsaken finally opened his mouth and said, "All right, since so many of my friends have advised me, then I won't make a move. This debt can be considered written off." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Emperor Forsaken was invincible. Unless it was a crucial moment, no one was willing to fight with him. Being able to obtain such a result was also a fluke. Write it off? Emperor Forsaken, I have never thought of writing things off with you. Xiao Chen, who was seriously injured and had a pale complexion, suddenly opened his mouth and said those words. In an instant, everyone's hearts were in their throats again. What was Xiao Chen trying to do? Big brother Xiao? Emo Chen felt very anxious as she sent a voice projection to Xiao Chen, hoping that he would not act rashly. Don't worry, I have my own plans. Xiao Chen replied casually. However, he did not stop. Instead, he took another step forward. Emperor Forsaken's face darkened as he said indifferently, "Looks like I still have to make my move." Xiao Chen, don't be rash. Everyone quickly tried to dissuade Xiao Chen, not wanting him to do anything drastic. Xiao Chen remained very calm. He said calmly, I was not rash. I am very clear on what I am doing. The debt between me and the deity Dao Union will not be written off. He, the heaven-abandoning deity sovereign, will not really stop because of this. Today, you can find an excuse for me to injure the divine sun. Tomorrow, you can find an excuse for me to kill the divine sun. The day after tomorrow, you can come up with a new excuse. As long as you have an excuse, you can make me receive 3 palm strikes and come and go as you please. Xiao Chen's words were like a clap of thunder on the flat ground, powerful and resonant, shaking people's hearts. The truth revealed in his words was a little sad, but in a world where the strong were respected, Xiao Chen's words were not wrong at all. Although the possibility was not high, as long as Emperor Forsaken was the strongest in Kunlun, he could find trouble with Xiao Chen at any time, regardless of any rules. This is a sad and cruel fact. It wasn't that many people hadn't thought of this, but they all chose to ignore it. They just wanted to send away the god of plague, Emperor Forsaken, as soon as possible. Although you seem to make a lot of sense, there are many places in this world where I can come and go as I please. There are also places that I can't go casually. Unfortunately, your dragon sect is not one of them. Emperor Forsaken's expression did not change. He was calm and unruffled as he spoke in an incomparably overbearing manner. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth curled into a mocking smile as he sneered, "Is that so? Either you kill me today, or you can forget about walking out of the Dragon Gate." Emperor Forsaken laughed. "Interesting. If I want to leave, can you stop me?" I can't stop him, but I don't mind taking a trip to the God realm. The blade in my hand doesn't mind slaughtering the people of the realm of the gods. As long as I want to, in 100 years or 1,000 years, your god race will sooner or later be exterminated by me. Xiao Chen's gaze turned gloomy as he enunciated every word coldly and emotionlessly. Emperor Forsaken's heart skipped a beat. The image of Xiao Chen hiding in a different place after every 1,000 people he killed appeared in his mind. If Xiao Chen continued killing for 100 years or 1,000 years, just thinking about it made one tremble in fear. Not just anyone could threaten Emperor Forsaken like this. However, Xiao Chen could. If he wanted to hide his identity, Emperor Forsaken would not be able to discover him. The cold wind whistled, and everyone felt a chill hit them, causing their bodies to feel cold for no reason. Do you really want to die that much? Emperor Forsaken's aura strengthened continuously, pressing down on Xiao Chen. Heavy clouds churned in the sky. It looked like the sky was sinking. With every moment it sank, The pressure on Xiao Chen increased. It was like a volcano about to erupt. Everyone felt a horrifying energy accumulating in the place. Once it erupted, it would unleash an earth-shattering energy. Who is not afraid of death? Who does not love life? If I were not at a dead end, I would not have to do this. Like now, you can slap my face whenever you want. What is the point of me, Xiao Chen, living? A warrior could be killed, but not humiliated. Everyone had their pride. Xiao Chen considered himself a martial artist. Before the heavenly Tao, he was as insignificant as an ant. However, even a lowly existence had its own pride. Emperor Forsaken clearly saw Xiao Chen's rise today and purposely came to slap his face. Furthermore, it was clear that Emperor Forsaken had succeeded. With 2 effortless palm strikes, Xiao Chen could not resist at all. At the banquet of the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment, these 2 palm strikes were like 2 resounding slaps, ruthlessly slapping Xiao Chen, who was about to preach the Tao. The various primes stepped forward to plead for leniency, giving Emperor Forsaken face once again. They appeared amiable, but in reality, they only increased the might of the slap. Was it interesting? To Emperor Forsaken, of course, it was interesting. How could it be boring to teach one how to be a person, slap one's face, then put on a humble appearance and leave elegantly? However, it was really boring. To Xiao Chen, it was not interesting at all. You can play with me, but don't play with me. If it were in the past, the difference between us would be too great, like an ant and an elephant. An ant challenging an elephant was seeking its own death, so Xiao Chen had no choice but to accept it. However, it was different now. Although there was a difference between Xiao Chen and Emperor Forsaken, it was not as exaggerated as the difference between an ant and an elephant. Xiao Chen's pride would not allow him to be humiliated by others with such a difference. Just this once, I will not accept it. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he said indifferently, "You are the one who forced me. This is not what I asked for or what I wanted. However, everyone has their own principles and bottom line. I would rather pay with my life." This fellow, Emperor Forsaken, clenched his fist tightly, cracking his knuckles. Was he forcing him to kill someone? However, he could not kill Xiao Chen now. The group of primes already gave him sufficient face. If he forcefully made a move, both sides would end up severely injured. No one would be able to escape. However, if he did not kill Xiao Chen, could it be that he had to apologize to this fellow? The top prime of the Kunlun realm fell into a dilemma, speechless for a while. When the crowd saw this scene, they could not help feeling shocked. Under the pressure of Emperor Forsaken's strong aura, Xiao Chen was actually able to remain so resilient, forcing Emperor Forsaken into speechlessness. Immediately, everyone whispered to each other. As they looked at Emperor Forsaken, they could not help revealing playful expressions. Even the top prime of the Kunlun realm was not omnipotent. "This is great. This is too much. Let's see how you deal with this. What exactly do you want?" After the stalemate lasted for a long time, Emperor Forsaken finally chose to take a step back. His aura still made it difficult for everyone to breathe. The pressure was like a mountain. However, Emperor Forsaken's tone was clearly weaker than before. Xiao Chen said calmly, "It's very simple. Just send out another palm strike. No matter what the result of this palm strike is, you will not be able to escape. No matter what the result is, from today onwards, you are not allowed to use such lousy excuses to attack me. I don't mind you attacking me. If you want to kill me, just have a fair fight. In the future, if I want to kill you, it will definitely be a fair fight. It will not be like today. I do not ask for much. I only want one word, respect." Xiao Chen's white robes fluttered in the wind. His fine black hair flowed like a waterfall, fluttering about wantonly. No one expected Xiao Chen's final request to be so simple. Xiao Chen's request was so simple, just respect. I do not want you to do anything. I just want you to send out a third palm strike. From today onwards, do not look down on me. Whoosh! Xiao Chen suddenly drew the lunar shadow saber, giving off a gentle glow. At the same time, an oath stone flew out of the universe ring. The oath stone spun rapidly as it flew towards Emperor Forsaken. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Emperor Forsaken, at the strongest expert of the Kunlun realm. Even experts like the Cyclic Astral Lord, the Bright Moon Empress, and the Myriad Law Fiend Master were no exception. The meaning in their gazes was not just to see how Xiao Chen would decide. Instead, it was a kind of pressure. It was a silent declaration that although Emperor Forsaken was strong, he had to send out a third palm strike today. Emperor Forsaken stretched out his hand, and the oath stone spun around in his palm. It gave off a strong wind that made his long hair flutter. When Emperor Forsaken raised his head and looked at the other party, he had a misconception for some reason. His aura clearly suppressed Xiao Chen's. However, no matter how he looked at it, the other party was looking down on him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.